Let's do the damn thing.
Oh, you know what time it is. It's time to take it to the Birdland. It's about to go down. Hope y'all ready. Yeah, let's go. Come and roll with me to the Birdland. Friends got to giving you the word, man. Any other BS is absurd, man. Sports talking, they give it to you firsthand. They can talk Terps, they can talk O's. Yeah, they both lit. That's how it goes. Baltimore squad, Ravens and Poe. Better tune in. Here gonna show. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS.
It's all about that BS, baby.
There it is. What up, BSers?
A little different tonight.
That's right. Fred, Drew, in the junior big chair. Ryan and James, as Scott is out doing work things. You know,
He knew we were going to trash Tebow. He had to run.
that's right.
he
I don't
wasn't
blame
having
him. I don't blame him. No, he's out there in the mountains somewhere. He sent us a picture, some nice views, some snow caps. I don't know
Come
where
back
the hell he
Broncos
is.
fan.
Johnny Utah.
Leave that snow up there. What's up, everybody? Hope you guys had a nice holiday weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there, all you lady Birdland BSers. We appreciate your support as always.
Women are taking over. First two comments and 3 out of the first 5 were ladies.
I love that people are running to be the first comment. That is freaking great. Ryan says it one time live on the show, and it's a thing now. I love it. Keep it up. I'll have to figure out something like a monthly giveaway for it. Keep tally on who does it the most. All right, man. We got a lot to cover on this week's show. With the Ravens, we're talking wide receivers, edge rushers, O-line. I mean, kind of the same shit we've been talking about now for the last couple of months. We're going to look at some of the latest signings, some of the revamping of the offensive line, where we're kind of at with that. Do you guys feel comfortable with the current status of the offensive line or not? Let's talk about that. Drew's going to talk about the Orioles, a lot about the Orioles. John Means.
Good news this week with
Right.
the Orioles.
John Means makes history, and unfortunately had the passing of one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best pitching coaches in MLB during his time.
Yeah, definitely.
A couple of former Terps have their new NFL residency. We give our takes on the spring game and check in with men's lacrosse. Is the AC still a bitter X, Ryan?
Yeah, I think they're definitely bitter.
It seems to be.
They're bitter and controlling.
Undefeated. You don't get the number 1 overall seed. We'll talk about that, though. But before we do, I want to remind you, if you've ever been injured at work or in an auto accident and weren't sure who to call, 855-MD-CRASH. The Maryland Personal Injury Attorneys that'll have your back. If you find yourself in an unfortunate situation just like I have, give our team at MD Crash a call right away. We all know the cost of medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering. It all adds up quickly and can potentially put you in a bad financial place. If you want a team that'll handle your case, big or small, and just give you some peace of mind, save this number now. 855-MD-CRASH. It's 855-632-7274. Be sure to follow them on Facebook for some fun giveaways, including tickets to maybe some minor league games, some local games. We'll see. All right, Drew, it's time for some flock talk.
Yeah.
As we're getting close to season activities. Tomorrow, they're actually going to announce the schedule as to, you know, who we're going to face and when. We already know what the teams are going to be.
I like how the NFL always has a setup now where it's like, 8 o'clock on whatever day they pick. But then, like, at 10 of, it's like all over Twitter. Like,
Yeah, I know.
like, okay, well, I'm just going to do that now. Watch
If
the
you
little
want
schedule.
your NFL news firsthand, Twitter 100%
Yeah,
is the way to go.
definitely.
That is where it is. That's where I got all my draft pick information early this year. It's like Twitter is the greatest. But with that comes the question of how many fans are going to be in the stands, right? And team president Dick Cass came out this week and said, plan is to have full capacity. So I'm super excited, super pumped. They just took my $2,000 out of my account the other day. So they better have full capacity. And he's feeling pretty optimistic about it. So I don't know about you, but to me, I'm excited.
Look, I've been doing this a lot last couple weeks. Like, I get my vaccine, my second one, on Saturday.
Right.
I'm not going to do anything ultimately, go get crazy because now I got a vaccine. Like, I get that, but it feels good that you can start feeling like you've got NFL teams saying, look, our plan is we're going to have fans in the stadium.
Right.
Like, we had, I'm going to Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, nice.
This happened last year. Well,
They're still around?
Yeah. Well,
Holy
they
cow.
came back. They got back together.
Okay.
And then COVID screwed everything up. But, like, concerts for August, like, they're back. Like, I mean, at least if they're sending tickets out, that means, like, that's happening. So it's when you hear news like this, you feel a little bit of a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Like, all right, maybe we get a little bit of normalcy back.
Ryan and I had our first taste of normalcy going down to the spring game a couple of weeks ago, which that was nice. And listen, do I fully expect them to be at full capacity? No. I'll be surprised if we do get to that point, but it'll be interesting to see how the Ravens handle it. You know, if they don't have full capacity, out of season ticket holders, how many games do you get to go to? Who gets to pick? You know, what games are going to? All that's. It'll be weird to see how they handle that, but I just want to be inside the stadium. As much as I love you, Ryan, I don't want to be in your basement all year round watching football again this year.
Hey, it's a really nice basement.
It is a nice basement.
Coming along.
I want to be able to remember the games.
I've
though.
also already told the
End
wife
well.
that we're improving the projector. I've given up on the old school projector I got.
But where else can you get a ball pit while you're watching?
I know,
football,
right?
though? I mean,
Diving into a ball pit face first drunk. I mean, that's great for any Ravens game.
don't drink tequila.
Best tailgate ever. Yeah, don't drink tequila. Bad for you kids. But moving on, man. Let's talk. We talked last week about the signing of Villanueva for the offensive line and what that kind of meant for this team, and kind of told the story as to why the Ravens went the direction that they did with the draft. But he had his first press conference as a Raven. And I mean, I've always kind of been intrigued with this guy. Obviously, he's got the military background and everything. But this is the first time I actually sat down and listened to him. And I mean, he talked for a good half an hour or more. Dude is just super well spoken. He's just got a really cool outlook on life, full of information, and obviously he's got the journey through the military. I don't know what your impressions were.
I mean, that's enough to endear to a fan base like this as it is.
Right.
I know, like, you're a little bit. You keep in the back of your mind, like, there's a reason why. I mean, you're a little bit older, and you didn't look as good last year compared to your other years. Like, is that a decline? Yes, as a fan, you could worry about are you going to be a real, like, problem?
Right.
But, I mean, at the same time, now you get to, like, take that step from a left tackle to a right tackle. And no, you maybe, didn't always picking it up like that.
Right.
But now maybe it's a little less pressure on you.
Right.
And now this is a running team, so you're not like your quarterback in to sit there in a shotgun, get rid of the ball in a second and a half, and you didn't even get a chance to really block.
Right.
So, that can help you look better with more time.
Yeah, I mean, and they actually brought that up during his press conference. They asked how much of a challenge it would be going from left tackle to right tackle. And for me, I thought it would be, and from everything I've heard from other players, that it would be a big difference for especially somebody that's never really played the right side of the line, because everything is backwards. Everything is flip-flopped, right? But he said really it's not going to be that big of a struggle. For him, the biggest adaptation is going to be getting in the playbook, learning the terminology of everything with the playbook, and obviously going from a pass-happy offense to a run-happy offense. It's going to be a big difference for him, but that was actually one of the things that was most intriguing for him as to why he signed with the Ravens, because let's be honest, offensive linemen can't stand a pass block in the most part. They love to run block a lot more because when you're a pass block, you're just sitting back, getting beat up, taking hits. Run blocking, you're driving forward, you're creating the holes. It's a different mentality.
The pass blocking, like you said, waiting, that sets you up for the criticism a lot more.
Oh, 100%.
Than the run.
Absolutely. And obviously, the question came up about, playing against the Steelers, AFC North, getting to go against them twice a year. He did say that kind of weighed into the factor. So, and he, that's another thing that I really liked about him, was that he was very candid. He actually kind of subliminally dropped some heat towards the Steelers. Like, even specifically,
it might not have been too subliminal either. He might as well have said Juju.
Right.
We knew what he was talking about.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He did everything but say the name. But I don't know. He just seems to be, to me, a really likable guy. And when he talked about Lamar, he couldn't do anything but speak more highly of him. I mean, he's relishing in the opportunity to block for him, and watching him use his talents. He compared it to when the Steelers had Le'Veon Bell, right? And being out in front of him and kind of letting him. Le'Veon Bell, as much as we hate the Steelers, probably one of the most strategic and one of the most patient running backs that I've ever watched personally.
I always I always hated, like, you didn't want to root for him.
Right.
But you always just like, I like the player.
Right.
Forget the team you're playing for. I know we got to play it twice a year. I like watching that guy play, no matter what.
He was very calculated. Like, he would sit behind his offensive line, kind of wait for things to develop and wait for things and just shuffle back and forth and boom, hit a hole. He wasn't like a super blazer, didn't have a ton of speed, but he had enough elusiveness and he had enough awareness that made him very successful. And he compared Lamar to Le'Veon in that way, and how much fun he had in watching Le'Veon play. So he's looking forward to that, which is good. But let me ask you this, and this is kind of the big question, right? Looking at this offensive line as a whole, do you think the Ravens did enough for the offensive line this year? Because there was obviously a lot of question marks, right? We don't know the complete status of Ronnie Stanley. He had a couple surgeries. They're saying he should be ready for week 1, right? So that's your left tackle. You bring in Ben Cleveland through the draft, who that's now going to be your left guard, assuming everything that everybody's saying is true, right? Which moves Bradley Bozeman to center and corrects your center issue,
which is good, yeah.
Which is very crucial. You bring in the veteran in Kevin Zeitler as your right guard, which was a big problem this past year, was that right guard position. Yeah. And then obviously you got the hole at right tackle left by Orlando Brown's trade, and that's the Villanueva signing. So overall, looking at that, are you happy? Do you feel confident in this offensive line? Do you think they did enough?
If you would have told me that they didn't bring in a Villanueva, like, we'll see what you get out of him.
Right.
But to me, I don't see him signing and going, what the hell did you do there?
Right.
Like, it was a need. And yes, I mean, would you rather have had Orlando Brown still here? Yeah, but then, he would have the holdout stuff. We've talked about that enough.
Right.
So I think the line is actually as good as I thought it would be, and through the offseason, through the draft. And once they made the trade, you were like, okay, well, you got to improve somewhere.
Right.
And like I said, to me, it would have been a different story. And I still said, I still want to give Tyree Phillips a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on the line.
Agree.
I've always said that to you, but like, maybe now you can have that all season and that you didn't have last year for some of these rookies, namely Phillips.
Right.
And now, like, to be behind these guys, maybe it pushes them a little more.
Exactly. And that's kind of my take on the Phillips situation specifically is I don't think he was ready, and I still don't think he was ready to be an everyday starter. But to him being in that swing tackle position where he got, kind of goes in and gives guys reps off and that kind of thing, left tackle to right tackle, I like that. But I don't want him out there as a starter. So I'm happy with the offensive line. Do I think it's a upgrade over where we are last year? Obviously, I don't think it's an upgrade at right tackle, but I think overall it is a better unit today than it was last year.
Because of if Ben Cleveland performs well, because you drafted Cleveland, you brought in Zeitler, and he gets to move Bozeman to the center spot. Where that center to me, like, center was the bag, was
exactly
that's the problem right there.
Right.
The whole line anyway.
It's one thing if you've got, a right tackle that's not, holding his blocks or not great in the run game, that kind of thing. Those things you can substitute players out for and get a correction. But when your issue is at the center position, snapping the football, and not only do you have that issue with one guy, but you got the issue with two guys, that's a major problem. That's a fundamental problem that shouldn't happen at the NFL level. So to me, that was big. Ryan, I know I saw you over there shaking your head that you didn't seem to agree that this is a good offensive line, or you weren't happy with the current status.
I'm just still scared about Ronnie Stanley. So until we know that he's back, I mean, just think about who we had coming off injury last year that was never actually 100% of himself. So even if he is back, what Ronnie Stanley do we get? So I'm still a little weary, a little worried, and that obviously is a huge part of whether everything else that we've done works for this year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they've got a ton of guards. I don't know what they've got a ton of. I don't understand. I'm still baffled about Ben Powers. Like, this guy, to me, when I've seen him on the field, he's done well. Does he jump off the tape? No, but he doesn't jump off the tape in a positive way or a negative way. There must be something more to the Ben Powers situation than we know, because I just don't understand why this guy hasn't been given more opportunity.
Yeah, he's always been a curious case for me too, because when they drafted him, then I kind of I'm a lot more into looking at rookies and along the draft process than I was then. But still, I looked at him. I mean, Mo made the pick. It was something about him. I just wanted to see. Okay, here's your guard of the future. And like you said, something and you've had your opportunities in the offseason. You've had opportunities in the regular season.
I feel like there's something more to the story.
It's just something's not clicking, or he's not. I don't know if he's not reading the playbooks. I mean, he's not something he's not grasping that they know that we obviously are not being told or hasn't gotten out.
Right.
It is a curious case. Yeah,
I agree. Well, the other curious case is going to be this wide receiving core. And you see how I put this picture together, right? There's a certain group of players all in here, and there's one guy on the outside looking in, right?
Poor Boykin.
Yeah, poor Boykin. But before we get into the core as a whole, I wanted to ask you this. I want to get all of your opinions on this. Do you guys think as fans we get too caught up on the whole number one wide receiver label?
Yes.
Okay.
Because to me, and I was thinking about it earlier, there's only really and maybe I'm wrong, someone can give their opinion too. There's only really 6 or 7 that guy's a number one.
Right.
You have Devontae Adams, you have Hopkins, Julio used to be, maybe he's kind of transitioned now that it could be Ridley's spot
Diggs.
soon. But Diggs has become that. He showed that last year. You have why was the name?
Hopkins.
He said Hopkins.
Oh. Now there was
Adams.
a name I really wanted to bring on. Allen. Keenan Allen is always an under the radar, but he is their number one.
Right.
And then it's kind of a drop off. Even a Tyreek Hill. You still got Kelsey.
Right.
Kelsey's almost the number one, and Tyreek Hill's the dynamic player. But then even an AJ Brown with Tennessee, you can do some dynamic things, but is that a guy number one?
I know.
Hollywood. I like, even though I call him the Riddler, and Hollywood's not number one. We're not going to ever say that. But he still does a lot of stuff for this offense.
Right.
There's still a lot of guys that you can pinpoint. Even I said, Ridley, you probably wouldn't consider him a number one right now, but he is still one of the focal points of the team.
Yo, appreciate that.
Through the offers.
Can't see.
Troy Neville.
Troy Neville, appreciate the donation, man. Thank you.
My point being is that saying there's a number one anymore kind of doesn't really make any sense, because there's so many dynamics to teams that it's not like a Megatron where you're throwing that guy 180 catches a season targets and then that's it. I don't care about the other guys. They're all just part of the problem.
And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because to me, in this offense, knowing what it is, we all want it to improve, especially in the passing game. We need to see that passing game develop and take the next step. I agree with that. But we don't need to rewrite the entire thing, right? They're a great running team. They are built to be a running team first. They need to develop and they need to get better in the passing game. And I think with the additions that they made in the offseason, adding Sammy Watkins, adding the two guys, in Bateman and Wallace through the draft, I think as a whole, this core is much better than it was last year, and Lamar's going to have more options. What was missing in this offense, and that's where it kind of it gets into what do you define as a number one wide receiver? I think a true number one wide receiver are some of the guys that you just listed, like the 5 or 6 top flight wide receivers that just separate themselves from the entire league, not just their team. But there's only 5 or 6 of them in the league. For us, what we were missing, it's not that we were missing that number one wide receiver, because this offense doesn't dictate the kind of production those 5 or 6 players put up with the quarterbacks that they have. What we were missing was that true X receiver. Right? That true guy that can go on the outside, catch those 50-50 balls, can be physical, but yet can still take the top off of the defense, that runs great routes, clean routes. And I think in Bateman, we got that, right? But everybody labeling him as this number one wide receiver, I think some fans might have too high expectations. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you agree, Ryan?
Yeah, and I still don't think it's a Galladay. I still don't think it's a Robinson, Allen Robinson. But I think the combination of him and Marquise Brown can be much better than either one of them would be individually.
I 100% agree with you. Again, what is a number one wide receiver? Is it a guy that catches 100 balls a year? Is it a guy that gets over 1,200 yards a year? I just don't see this offense right now with Greg Roman and the way it's constructed ever dictating that kind of production out of a receiver. You might get a guy that gets 70, 80 balls. You know, Bateman could get to that point, or even Hollywood could get to that point because of Bateman, right? You might get a guy that flirts with 1,000 yards, that kind of thing. I just don't think we're going to see the kind of production that you would see from, you know, like a Diggs or a Devontae Adams or any of these guys. Good.
The other thing, I think you're not going to see anybody shadowing Marquise anymore. You're not going to see anybody shadowing Bateman. I think that they're going to be so close that it's going to be you can play the matchups, you can move them back and forth, whatever side you want to get one of the cornerbacks, because I don't think that they'll isolate one guy. It probably is going to be very similar. So why would you shadow and follow him around the field?
Right. I 100% agree. So let me ask you this. As I said, I've got this picture up here built this way for a reason. What do you think Miles Boykin's role is moving forward? You know, Miles Boykin was supposed to be that X receiver. He was supposed to be that 6'4", 200-some plus pounds guy, the guy that can go up and get those contested balls, which he did at Notre Dame. I watched highlights of him the other day, and against Clemson, against good teams too, he was making good contested catches. It just has not worked out. And again, there's a disconnect, in my opinion, between Lamar and Miles.
Yeah, that's what we've always thought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
at least that's what it looks like.
And a guy in that position with, to be a number one or to be a main focus of a team, you got to be like, you got to have some top tier route running. You can't be, you're going this way when it was supposed to be a different route. Like, you got to know your routes, and they got to be damn near perfect if you're going to be a focal point. We'll say focal point of it, of an offense instead of a number one. And you just haven't seen it out of him. And even every time he'll have like a game where it's like maybe it's only like 3 catches, but damn, he had a 40-yard touchdown. That was pretty cool.
Right.
You want to give it the benefit of the doubt, and then he does something stupid that leads to an INT like the next game, and it's just like, you're such an enigma. I don't know what maybe I should be calling you the Riddler because you just don't. And I wanted to root, like I want to root for him.
Right.
So I'm never really super overly critical of him, I guess. But at some point, rubber meets the road. Like, this is it. If you don't show something in this offseason, go to any camps you can go to, or all the offseason programs, whatever you can go to, or go because you got to prove something. And it ain't just forget to just the Ravens. Like, if the Ravens let you go because there's just too many hands.
Right.
Well, then, all right, you got to prove something to somebody, and you're running out of opportunities here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the writing's on the wall with some of the draft picks that they made this year in Bateman and Wallace. That was obvious to address that issue. But my thing is with this entire conversation, the whole number one wide receiver thing, I just think as a group, this core is much improved with the additions of Bateman, Watkins, and Wallace.
Yeah.
I think as a whole, and I think those guys added, you're going to see Hollywood, Andrews, Duvernay, their production even improve more because now they've got more options. Who are you going to cover, right? And again, in the Roman offense, he likes to move guys around. He doesn't like to play one guy specifically as the X and one guy specifically in the slot. He'll move them inside and outside to create matchup issues. And I just think overall, when you have that many weapons and you have guys that, like you said, 1, dive into the playbook, 2, are clean route runners, and 3, can actually catch the football when asked upon, all that's going to do is improve everybody else around them.
Yeah. And then and as much as we're sitting here tallying the core, it still comes down to the guy that makes the plays.
Yep.
We beat it's a dead horse at this point, but we're going to keep beating it until they go out and play and he shows something different. We're going to keep just talking about Roman.
Right.
Like, are you going to change your ways?
Yeah, and that's
there's people that know that are like kind of analysts and talking heads that like know Roman for a long time that still like I don't think he's going to really change his weight. Like even people like that think positively of him. Like I don't know if he'll change. You know what I mean? Like,
and I think that's the aspect that I'm looking forward to the most because you bring in a guy like T. Martin and you bring in Keith Williams, right? Guys that are wide receiver specialists, right? Mm-hmm. Passing game type specialists. I want to see, does Roman actually allow their influence into his playbook and schemes? Like, does he allow them to help him, be creative, create more, more diverse schemes?
Yeah.
And that's where I want to see if Roman actually allows him to do that, or is he a stubborn ass that just is like, you know what? No, I've gotten here this far. I don't need anybody's help, and then we bring these guys in for no reason.
Especially when we know you're going to be able to run the ball well.
Right.
Like you're not going to fall off a cliff in the running game. So like at some point, like you change your focus a little bit. You can do this perfectly.
Right.
So why don't you take care of the other part that you can't do as great?
Right. That's true.
That I'm just tired of everyone blaming Lamar because I'm sorry, like he can do it.
Right.
He can do it. There's no denying it.
Right. Well, let me put you on the spot then, right? Because typically when the Ravens go into a season, they carry 5, maybe 6 wide receivers at most on the active roster, right? And right now you've got a cluster of players, right? You got a bunch of, like Ryan says, a bunch of 2s and a bunch of 3s. Like, so who is going to be the odd man out? If you just look at this group here, right?
A bunch of 5'11s.
It could just be a visual thing, and I could be reading into shit. But this group here, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then you got one guy out here with 80, right? Like, it's like these guys are all in this group together, but one guy stands out as the sore thumb. To me, I think this is put up or shut up time for Miles Boykin.
I didn't even realize they all went in order.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm just now seeing that.
That's because he's the third tight end now. That's what number's going to work out. That's fine.
I think scroll back up. It's a Rob Johnson on Facebook. I think he was what I was thinking about too. The only thing that could probably help out Boykins is he can do special teams. And look, I'm just saying it's Hardball's kind of like soft spot for teams. You know what I mean?
I agree with that, but
it won't look appealing to have 7 wide receivers when you're not a pass happy team as it is. But that I could see going for him, at least helping him along the way until the start of the season. But like it still goes back to like you got to show something on offense,
right?
Like to the special teams thing, it only goes so far.
I just don't see them keeping a Prochet and a Boykins. And, you know, the Ravens obviously drafted some guys in this draft that have some special team capabilities, right? Some guys that could come in and potentially replace the loss of a Prochet or a Boykins. To me, Prochet has more value. One, because you don't really know what you have in him yet. You haven't seen him on the field in game day. So there's still the unknown with him from a production standpoint in the offense. But then also he fields punts. You know, he's a punt returner. He might not be electric. He might not be, you know, he might not have a ton of speed. He's got sure hands. He didn't fumble the ball or anything like that. I know it wasn't sexy back there. And really, we haven't had a great punt returner in some years now.
And even punt returning nowadays, like you're fair catching anyway half the time.
Most of the time you are.
More than half the time you're not even really running it back anyway.
But I mean, out of this group, you've got, you know, you've got the additions in Bateman and Wallace. They're pretty much locks to make the roster, right? There's 2. You know Hollywood's going to be on the roster. He's not going anywhere. You know Duvernay's not going anywhere. So now there's 4. There's 4 guaranteed locks. They just signed Sammy Watkins. There's 5, right? So you're at pretty much where you normally would be for the Ravens, right? Maybe they carry one more, 6. Last year they had a peak of 7 when they brought Des Bryant in. But that's a rarity. They usually don't carry 7 wide receivers. So to me, barring no injuries, if everybody goes into the season healthy, it's either Boykins or it's Prochet, in my opinion. And neither one of those guys, in my opinion, are stashable on the practice squad. You put them on the practice squad, somebody's going to pick them up. Somebody's going to say, nah, that offense is shit. Boykins is coming over here and he's going to be a superstar, just like freaking Darren Waller was or whatever. Somebody's going to take a chance on him. And I think James Prochet, again, clean route runner, catches the football. You know, that was one of the biggest things he came out of college with was great hands. And again, the unknown with him. I just don't think either one of them are stashable.
Now, if they let they cut Boykin towards the end of the summer, or maybe there's one of those trades for like a conditional pick.
Right.
Do you believe like they'd be able to hold on to like Kane or Victor or anybody else? There could be anybody else that comes in on the practice squad to stash.
Those are 2 guys that haven't even brought up yet.
You said of injuries, like
I think Kane and Victor, if anybody's going to make this practice squad roster, those are the 2 guys, right? It's these top 6 or 7 that we're talking about now that, in my opinion, are going to be of the ones that, unless, you know, somebody comes out and has an amazing training camp and have this amazing, you know.
It'll be Boykin because we're talking about getting.
But that's the problem.
Gone, and that's the problem.
Boykin has looked good in the preseason.
Yeah, exactly.
It's every time the season starts, he completely disappears.
Yep.
As I saw our boy Garnett talking about Justin Harper online earlier today. I don't know if you remember him, but he was a camp celebrity, dude. He would always do well in camp, but man, as soon as the lights came on, awful.
Yep.
Disappeared. And that's kind of what Miles Boykin has turned into, in my opinion. But all right, let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. The edge rusher with the other first-round pick, right? We talked a little about him. Odafe away. They also picked up Dalen Hayes out of Notre Dame, right? The 2 edge rushers they got in this draft. Based on knowing that they got those 2 draft picks, knowing who they kept in free agency with Tyus Bowser, keeping, Pernell McPhee in the fold, do you think the Ravens should still be looking for that vet edge rusher now? They have a little bit of cap room. Do you think that they should be still signing one of these vet guys out there? You got Justin Houston out there. You got Ryan Kerrigan out there. Some names that could be impactful.
You're almost going to have to regardless because you're going to need depth. You're still going to, you know what I mean? You're still going to need depth. So, I mean, you're at this point where, and this is we've seen it the last couple of years, where the longer these guys go, it won't cost you as much anyway. So, I mean, yeah, you still might cost you to say $7-8 million for Justin Houston or Melvin Ingram. I always want to say Melvin Ingram.
Yeah.
But you're going to need to bring in one of them. I'm more of the line of Houston or Ingram. And granted, I guess it all depends on trying to, all right, well, what money would it take to bring a guy in?
Right.
But you're going to have to add something because, just like you said, at least with, McPhee, you already know right there you're limited.
Right.
You're going to have to be, even if it's a guy that's not going to be much of a run stopper, you're still going to need a pass rush specialist to bring in to add that depth.
Exactly, and I agree with you. It's, when you look at these guys, we talked about it on last week's episode. Owe has a very high ceiling, right? But he's super raw, right? He's going to need time to develop. He's not going to be, in my opinion, I don't think he's going to be a guy that's ready to go out there and take the bulk of snaps day one. It would be advantageous, in my opinion, for the Ravens to bring in a guy like Justin Houston that he can learn under, and develop under, because right now, you can't count on Pernell McPhee being out there for much. You have to manage his snap counts that he's out there for. So it forces, without bringing in a veteran edge rusher, it forces Owe and Dalen Hayes to kind of learn on the job.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to build the best football team that you can to go after a Super Bowl run, you need it. And I think personally, you get a guy like Justin Houston, who everybody that's ever talked about him said he's a great locker room guy, right? And that he's a great leader. That would be the perfect fit to learn behind.
He's been the name that you're connected to the most on top of it. We know there's at least 5 or 6 out there, but he's the name you keep hearing about that they were even talking about before the whole comp pick thing. They had to wait for that to come out.
And the other part of this is, too, that we're not even talking about is Jalen Ferguson. He's a guy who's going into, his 3rd year, I think, now at this point?
Yeah.
He should be at that point where he's playing the majority of the snaps. He's playing the majority of the downs. But I'm not confident in Jalen Ferguson at all.
Yeah, it's are you going to keep being Jalen Ferguson, or are you going to come out and be Bowser?
Right.
Or are you going to come out and be a Zadarius Smith? We're all right, now I got to prove it something, because if not, I'm not going to get paid. The next contract, I'm going to be getting paid the vet minimum to go somewhere else.
I can't see the Ravens re-signing him based on what he is right now, unless he takes that next step and he takes a huge leap. Because right now, I haven't seen, outside of maybe being a better edge setter against the run, he's improved there. But as a pass rusher, he is still a one-trick pony. He is a bull rushing pass specialist, and it hasn't worked for him at the NFL level.
Especially from a guy that is set the NCAA record.
You broke Terrell Suggs' record in college. You might not be
coming out and breaking NFL records, but you got to at least show your goddamn worth.
Exactly. I really like this question. I'd like your answer on it.
Yeah.
If Owe is Clowney, would you accept that?
Yes, 100%. It's not, because again, edge rushers aren't, in my opinion, it's not all about sacks. That's what everybody gets caught up on with edge rushers. Clowney is one of the most disruptive outside linebackers, defensive ends in the game, regardless of sacks. He is constantly in the backfield. He's great against the run. So, yeah, if Owe turns into a Clowney, I'm perfectly happy with that. Do I think the masses, the fan base, would be happy with that? No, because we all get so centered and so focused on sack production. And, again, Clowney hasn't put up double-digit sacks once in his career, but yet he continually signs these one-year big contract deals. Why? Because he's disruptive and he's very good at his job.
And he has one really good highlight.
And he has one very good highlight from college. Yes. Will trail him for his entire life.
That was not even his final year, because he didn't actually play that final year.
That's right. No, that's absolutely right. But, again, Justin Houston is still out there on the free agency market. Haven't really heard much about him at all. I was surprised. I thought if the Ravens were going to be in on Justin Houston, once that May 3rd deadline hit, he'd be signed, right? Yeah. But we still haven't heard anything about him. I haven't heard him connected to any other teams. I guess no news is good news.
Yeah, it's weird as a Ravens fan. It's almost like you got to resign to the fact that like that. Like no news is good news.
Yeah.
Like not even just him. The top 5 that are out there right now. Like, all right, well, no one's signing them either. So like, you still have a shot. Like, you can still keep formulating your opinions on them, how we feel about who they should bring in. Because all right, well, like he didn't sign with Tennessee, or like that guy didn't sign with that team. Like it's no news is good news is almost the best way to put it.
Right.
Because you would figure like at some point, regardless. I mean, it's not September 1st yet.
Right.
So you would figure by like late July, like these guys are gonna have to sign somewhere.
Right.
Or you know what I mean? Like if you want to play, you're gonna start signing somewhere. So I think as a fan, you kind of just have to wait and see. I mean, that's kind of not really good advice, but
no, I agree with you.
What are you gonna do about it? Like,
I know. Listen. I just hope that the Ravens are still in the game. They've got roughly about $10 million still in cap space right now. And granted, again, they're going to carry a portion of that, probably $4 or $5 million into the season as that safety net I keep talking about. But they do have some money. They do have some contracts that they could restructure to free up more money. So there's an ability out there to sign Justin Houston if the Ravens really want to do it. It's just, will they do it? James, what's your take on the edge rusher situation? Do you think they should sign a guy like Justin Houston?
I think we need it.
Yeah.
Just for depth, and also with Judon and what's his face that left too? Ngakwe. We just need an extra veteran guy there to help out with these younger guys that are coming in. And it'll be good for the team, too.
Right.
So I hope they sign Houston. I know you're not a fan of Ingram, but I'll take either of the two.
It's not that I'm not a fan of Ingram. I think Ingram would be an upgrade, and I think it would be a good addition. I just think if you're going to spend that kind of money, I like the production out of Justin Houston better. I just think he's the better value.
Hey, how about you slow down the mimosas over there?
Yeah. By the way, I was laughing over here because the last time we went to James, there was 1.5 of those drank, and that was 3. I kind of hope the next time we come back, there's 12. Also, Drew,
slamming them.
Drew, I have to say, I really hope you understand the compliment that Fred just gave you, that he fell on the sword of Odafe Owe, because 100% he would have made me say that name if I was up there.
I will say, I practiced it 3 times before we went live. I made sure I got it.
He made not a big deal about that, but his handles still say Jason. Like, you might want to switch your handles a little bit.
He probably should switch the handles.
If you want people to catch on to that name.
With the Terps coverage, we have many names of that variation around. So I'm always falling on that sword. I'm not always right, but I'm always the one falling on it.
Well, hey, guys, we got somebody calling in. Scott is on the line. Scott, what's going on? Can you hear us?
What's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man, we got you loud and clear.
All right. So I know that you guys were talking. I got to go back for a quick second.
Yeah.
Because I was driving when you were talking about it. So
all the way back to Tebow?
No, we're not going to go that far.
Yeah, let's not go there.
We are going to go to the wide receiver thing. And Fred, I think you brought up a good point of, do we harp on that too much? Do we focus on it too much?
Yeah.
What I think it comes down to on a number one wide receiver is it's the threat, right? It's the guy that is, we talk in baseball terms, it's the 5-tool player, right? Mm-hmm. With wide receiver, you want somebody that can be physical, have those clean routes, everything that you guys said. So it's not necessarily that they're getting 1,000 yards. It's the fact that if you get them the ball, they are a true playmaker, right? Every time. Their hands are so secure that we're talking, 1 out of every 100 passes is what they're missing or less, right? That's the type of wide receiver that if it's in their range, if they can get fingertips on it, they're catching it. Right. That's what a true number one wide receiver is. And we don't have that, but to your guys' point, 2 number 2s is great. But at the same time, as Drew had said before, look at Hollywood Brown. He's had those times where he has drop issues, right? We've seen Andrews, what we call our top wide receiver as he is right now, even though he's a tight end, he's had some drops. We don't have that guy that Lamar knows he can throw it to in any situation, and that guy's got it.
And that's kind of why I was saying I think it's instead of focusing on the number 1 wide receiver label, I think it's we were missing a certain type of receiver. And all those things that you just mentioned are that type of receiver. Now, to Drew's point, those number one receivers that you're mentioning, there's not many of them in the league. There's only probably 5-6 teams that actually have that number one wide receiver. And again, I just don't think this offense, even an improved version of this offense, because we're talking about the 32nd ranked passing team in the league. That is the bottom, fellas. That is the last team in passing production, right? And it's by a large margin. If we can get into the top 25, right, to me, that's marked improvement, but I don't still, even in a top 25 passing offense, I don't see a 1,200-yard receiver. I don't see a receiver that's going to catch over 100 balls, and that's what those 5 or 6 elite receivers do, and that's just because this offense doesn't dictate that.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you're not going to, it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be the guy that's going to put up the numbers. It's the guy that provides you security when you need it most. Right now, that guy's Andrews. It's predictable. It's Andrews every time. We don't have that. So I thought it was a good question that you asked. And I was thinking about it. I was driving on. So I was like, you know what? I got to call in on this because it truly is, we've talked about that before, but we've never really we've never defined the wide receiver in that specifically, where it's that threat, not necessarily the production. It's the threat of the production that makes it worse, because that's what opens up the rest of the game.
Well, while I've got you on the line, we just wrapped up the conversation on edge rushers. I want to get your take on the edge rusher situation. Do you think that that's a need? Do you think bringing in a veteran like Justin Houston or Ryan Kerrigan is still a need after the draft?
I mean, you'd have to bring one of those guys in on a low end deal to make it make sense to then go in with enough money into the offseason with that, with that cushion that we've talked about previously.
Right.
So for me, it's unless you've got some phenomenal deal, which obviously they're still on the market, and there's, I'm sure they're probably taking phone calls, but nobody's knocking down the door for these guys. Right. If somebody's knocking on the door, they've signed already.
Yeah. According to Andrew on YouTube, he's saying that Houston's been knocking on, or the Falcons have been knocking on Houston's door. Haven't brought him in for a visit yet, but that's the first I've heard of a team showing interest in Houston in the last couple weeks.
If that's the case, I mean, power to him. But I think he's, and that may be one thing that he has to understand, is his asking price may be a little bit too high right now. And so he needs to accept that. And if he's willing to accept way lower and puts us in a position where we can have that cushion, then yeah, I'm absolutely entertaining that. How great would it be to have a guy like Justin Houston there, and those potential question marks with Oweh kind of, I don't want to say resolve themselves, but you can platoon if you need to, or you can have the ability for him to sit behind Houston and secure up some of those question marks that we have.
Right.
So I don't have a problem with it if it makes sense, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I think the Ravens will get somebody. Will it be Justin Houston? I don't know. It's going to depend on what the market dictates for him. If he's a guy that's just going after, he's chasing a dollar, then yeah, the Ravens aren't going to be the team that's going to be able to provide that.
The thing that fans need to also realize is a lot of these guys that are still on the market, there is a huge question mark with injuries.
Yeah.
Like Ingram,
that's true.
The Ingram's coming off, or age. So it's not like you're sitting there like with Clowney. Even though I'm not a big fan of Clowney. Yeah, he's got the injury issue, but he's still kind of got age on the side. He's still got ability on the side. Whereas a lot of these other guys that are still out there, they're out there for a reason.
Right.
So, and a lot of that is because there's an injury history.
Right. No, I agree with that. So I don't usually plug other podcasts on this podcast, right? But I don't know if you got a chance to listen to this, but Aqib Talib, former cornerback for the Rams, the Broncos. He played for a bunch of guys. He's got his own podcast called Catching Fades, and he had Marcus Peters on there the other day, which is fucking fantastic. If you haven't listened to Marcus Peters is the realest dude. He reminds me of somebody I grew up with, man. Just completely unfiltered, uncensored, says what's on his mind, no matter who he's in front of, doesn't give a shit. And it was actually kind of cool because they talked to him about how how the whole Rams situation ended and all that. And he said he was still bitter about the way the Rams handled him. And it wasn't that they traded him. He felt disrespected because not only did they trade him, but then right the next day or a week later, they bring in Jalen Ramsey on this trade. And what his words was, they bring a guy that does what I do, but not as good as how I do it. That I'm the better option, right? So that he's putting himself above Jalen Ramsey. So I think that was kind of his perspective on the Rams trade. But I just love his personality, man. He's a great dude. And then also,
Marcus Peters is a character for sure.
Right. They also talked to him about the offense, right? And he mentioned the Ravens needing better route concepts. So now this is just yet another player that has gone public, whether it be Twitter or whether now this on a podcast, that have kind of called out the offense, which is essentially calling out Greg Roman, because he didn't call out Lamar's ability to throw the ball, or we need a quarterback that can throw the ball better. He was talking specifically about route concepts. So, again, this just continues the whole internal discontent with the passing game from a coaching and scheme perspective.
I love whatever is happening on this episode. This table is shaking so much from you that Mo agrees with everything you say.
Oh, I love it.
Ryan's just giddy over there the whole time. And
That's what that weird camera thing was. Well, I was trying to zoom in on it, but there's no guest cam hooked up.
Oh, man. All right, Ryan, it's time for a social media shout out. Who's out there? Who's been talking?
All right, we got the wife, Kaylee, with the first comment. We got Steph Summers, who was barely edged out. And she's been telling me she wants to be that first comment. But she says Joe C. keeps doing it, who's also in the chat room.
Nice.
Dominic Henson, Buffalo Chuck, Steph Hemling, Justin Marshall, Sharing Sherry, Kamal Porter, Rob Johnson's, Ravens Gaming, Andrew Sakura. Jamal Caldwell says we don't have to worry about the Falcons right now because they don't even have enough money for their draft picks. So signing him's not going to be a problem unless they end up trading Julio.
That's the
Packers,
big thing. Do they trade Julio Jones? Do they free up that cap room? But that'd be interesting.
Then Joe Carlozzo's about watching the Orioles game and says if the O's can just find a good second baseman.
Yeah.
To which James over here says or a third or a shortstop.
That has been an issue for sure. All right, guys, it's time for some bros, bows, and O's.
Is Scott still on?
I think so. Scott, you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay.
I just didn't know. He was kind of quiet. I thought he would have chimed in at some point.
All right, well, let's take a look at this, right? The Orioles right now sitting at 16 and 19 overall, last in the AL East, but still 5.5 back when you look at it, right? It's a pretty cluster of teams, and it's really the Red Sox and everybody else is just kind of close together.
Yankees are coming back up too, sadly.
Yeah. I think the thing that's most alarming, Scott, and I want to get your take on this too, what's up with them playing at home? They're 11-6 on the road, but 5-13 at Camden Yards. What is the deal playing at home?
I think you define it almost every time we talk about the Orioles. It's the bandbox of the stadium, and we have pitchers that can do nothing but give up home runs, especially out of the bullpen here recently. And we're getting to, we talk about it in our group chat, but getting to the fifth inning for Lopez and some of these guys in the second half, Zimmerman struggled. We saw Kramer struggle, and now we're seeing Lopez really struggle. I think the three of those guys just show you when you get professional hitters at the plate, which is what let's not kid ourselves. That's what the AL East is. That's most of what our games are. Oakland's been doing a pretty damn good job of it. And when you get professional hitters up there like that, you can't be throwing 0-2 pitches right down the middle. Right. Their fastballs or the breaking ball that they're expecting. You just can't do it in these. It's the youth and inexperience that's kind of showing itself when they hit that third way around the lineup. And to me, that's what's killing us at home. For some reason, they're able to do it on the road, but at home, it really hurts them.
Well, let's give Jorge Lopez a little bit of credit.
It was a good game
He actually did pitch into the sixth inning. He got through 5. He got to 5 2/3, I think.
2/3.
Finally salvaged one game in that Red Sox series. We end up wrapping up that series 1-3.
Yeah.
With the 4-1 win last night. Offensively, some key, highlights from that. Mountcastle with the missile home run. I'm pretty sure that got out of the stadium in 3 seconds.
Yeah,
Ball was out of a rocket launcher. It was ridiculous. And then Mancini, boom, goes big, 440-foot bomb to center field, dead center field.
Dead center field, yeah.
It's crazy when you see a home run hit at Camden Yards to dead center field, right? And the ball looks like it just barely goes over the fence. You're like, it wasn't really that big of a bomb. But you figure the furthest tip to that wall is 410 feet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So just hitting it 30 feet over that, it's a 440-foot bomb.
You had to force one down the line and it's going on the Utah Street. We hit dead center. Well, no, it's just getting over the wall.
Right. So his bat's starting to pick up. Obviously, Cedric Mullins still hitting good. I mean, he's hovering more in reality now. He's in that like 310 range. But last night, obviously, the highlight of the night was that hustle triple that he had that they actually ruled a legit triple. I
couldn't believe they ruled it a triple.
I know, but see, and I think
should have, but I'm still surprised by it.
I know, I couldn't agree with you more. And Brandon Hyde,
I think, triple.
Yeah, Brandon Hyde summed it up perfectly in the post-game interview when he said this tape should be sent to all development and all, watched by all kids coming up through the minors and whatnot as to how you get out of the box. Because legit, from the moment he hit that ball, he hustled out of that box. It's the only way he ends up on third.
If they didn't play the shift, he would have been out.
Well, yes, but they were playing the shift.
They do play the shift.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's triple.
So it worked out for him. But,
It is. I would say it is what it is, but to that point of it being ruled a triple, Devers, while he made the mistake of not getting under it and just running and trying to make the running play, you got to credit the hustle. And to Fred's point, that video, if you guys saw the shot, then Fred, you might be referring to the shot. It's the first baseline shot that tracks him from home plate as he's coming out of the box and rounding all the way around. That one continuous shot, his head is down when he's hitting first base because he's listening to his first base going, go, go, go. And as he comes around second, he ain't looking at the ball. He's listening to his coach tell him, get here, get here, get here. Yep. And that's what it's about. That's that hustle. You listen, you trust. These kids and even these young players in MLB that watch the ball because they see some of these big names do it. You know how many balls that have come off the wall that wound up being doubles, probably should have been triples or even inside the park home runs, but these guys walk out of the box to look at it. Who was it? I think it was Bellinger the other day.
Right.
Hits a moonshot out to the outfield, and then it's out because it's a warning track ball.
Hey, it was a sack fly. You got something out of it. I know what you mean. I was like, what a fucking goof. Come on.
It's that whole thing of, the stare at it and I don't want to open up that can of worms, but that hustle and that mentality of trust your gut, leg it out. That's what Mullins is all about. And to Fred's point, Fred's been saying this for a while now. Mullins is the next closest thing we've had to Brian Roberts. And honestly, after seeing that, I might even say he's better at that than Brian Roberts.
I mean, listen, that kind of hustle, it's rare, which is sad. You don't see it at the major league level anymore, and again, that's something that's grained into you at the little league level, at the rec council level. Like that's number one thing you learn. But we watch guys, and we watched Manny Machado for years here.
The poster boy for that.
Yeah, he was terrible with it. He would just jog down the line. If that was Manny Machado, I don't even think he gets to second on that. Nope. I legit don't, because he just walks down the first baseline.
He probably doesn't even take a long round past first base.
Right.
2 steps over. Well, hey, I'm on base.
But that ends up being another run that the Orioles score, which at that time they needed that extra insurance run. So it's little things like that, especially when you're a young team or you're a young player trying to make an impact and trying to say, hey, listen, I can be part of this future. I can be part of this rebuild. It's things like that that's going to get you there. So going back to this whole 16 and 19 thing overall, I'm honestly pretty impressed this far into the season to be 16 and 19. Our buddy from Pressbox Online, Paul Vail, put out a tweet, and I thought it was great. ESPN ranked the O's schedule as the toughest in baseball so far. Only one team that they've played is currently below 500. After this weekend, they will have played Boston and the Yankees 20 times in 40 games, all with last year's best player injured for a month. They're 16 and 19. To me, that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
Didn't they also...
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Drew.
No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead, Drew.
No, it's your show.
You're in the seat. Go ahead.
No,
go
it's
ahead.
your show.
Go. All right, Jesus. All right, fine. We're going to play this game. No, so like one of the things that you made me completely forget my point. One of the things with that is I believe I also saw something on Twitter that they have a winning record against teams with above 500 records.
That
right?
I don't know. I can't confirm nor deny.
I'll see if I can find it, but I want to say that I saw something like that they are beating teams, which makes sense, right? Because part of that series against Oakland, right? Oakland was a hot team. We saw that. We saw it in the first series against Boston. We've seen it in one of the series against the Yankees so far. So I mean, these guys, it's a little bit of both worlds. You know, you get the word best of days, worst of days kind of thing, right. But at the same time, to your point, I'm pleasantly surprised with what I'm seeing and the fact that they're beating winning teams. They're almost playing down in a sense to teams with losing records.
No,
that's where they're losing the games.
I agree. And right now I'm sad that it's Tuesday night and we're doing the show only because tonight is a prime time matchup, in my opinion. The Orioles start a series up there in New York against the Mets. You got John Means, which we're going to talk about in a second, coming off of his no-no, pitching against Marcus Stroman, one of the better pitchers in the National League right now. That'd be a hell of a pitching matchup to watch. Again, the Mets, they are in first place in their division, but not real impressive.
Same amount of wins as the Orioles.
Yeah, at 16.
That goes to show you, and that too. I think that division had issues with COVID, so their schedule's a little bit behind. I think it's either Philadelphia or Washington has actually more wins but more losses. So but still, it just goes to show you, all right, yeah, you're worse than the best division, but I mean, around the league, you're still very comparable to a lot of teams.
Right. Well, we got to talk about this guy here, John Means.
Not Severino?
Not Severino. No.
Okay.
He does not deserve to be talked about. Wednesday, through a no-hitter. Yes, I'm just going to say it's a no-hitter. It was the perfect no-no, hence the title of the show. Faced the minimum batters, 27 batters, except for a drop third strike, which, mind you, one of the most impressive stats I thought from this night, 26 first strikes out of those 27 outs.
When do you ever see something like that?
You don't.
When do you ever see something like that if the guy gave up through 31 batters, he had, 28 strikeouts? It's kind of unheard of.
Yeah. What was your take on Means no-no?
You talking to me or Drew?
I was talking to Drew, but, he just kind of left me hanging.
I don't know. I'm getting used to this whole thing. Something to see because you never think of an Orioles pitcher even coming close to doing something.
I never thought I would see it, to be honest with you.
You know what I mean? You think, you have a Tillman, all right, yeah, you're pretty good. That's your ace. But,
right.
Okay, yeah, you're good, but, you're not great. Nothing's really must-see when you're pitching. Now even before the no-no, now John Means is must-see, pitching. You think, all right, he's on the mound. I don't know if, it's not a guaranteed win because you can, you can lose 1-0 like we did to the Rangers when he pitched.
Right.
But you feel a lot more confident as a fan. All right, I can sit down and watch this game. It's going to be competitive. If you love pitching, it's going to be great.
Right.
If you love pitching, it's going to be great. It was just so cool to see. You think of moments you had a lot of down times as an Oriole fan, we think before the Buck years, where it was there's nothing to really be excited about.
Right.
And it's been 52 years since Palmer threw his solo no.
Yeah.
So you think
69, I think.
We weren't around when that happened. We weren't.
Yeah.
Well,
I wasn't. Don't say it. Dick.
I wasn't around when they won the '83 World Series.
I was one.
Okay. Well, then you weren't around either. I guess. So stuff like this, we don't really get it very often.
Yeah.
So when I was damn near excited. Do I even watch this game?
Dude.
Do I want to turn it on? Because I was so busy. I turned it on. And for the 8th and 9th inning, I was I feel like I shouldn't be turning this on, but I have to. I don't want to not see it.
Right. So for an average fan like Ryan, right? So Ryan's going to get more excited about the offensive production, action, that kind of thing. But this game took me back to my roots as to why I'm such a baseball fan, right? Because just the nuances of what he worked with. He got into such a rhythm. He was working so quickly, and it was that whole just level of comfort and muscle memory and his ability to work the inside and the outside of the plate, just changing speeds, changing, direction, everything that he did worked.
Yeah.
It was a thing of beauty. If you have any appreciation for the game of baseball and you watch that, it literally was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, and it was like you think of it a lot too. Like changeup is one of his big pitches. Like he didn't even really feel confident with the changeup until like the 9th inning when it mattered. That's when he's like, "Oh, I finally felt like it was there."
Right.
Like, wait, you did all this and like one of your best pitches wasn't even really there. That's amazing to hear.
Scott, what was your take on the whole no?
I love to see it. It's obviously not. He's the first one to do it since Palmer, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that says something that wasn't a combined, right? His first individual. I think we had one combined previous to that.
It was like 91, I think.
91,
yeah. So, I mean, it's great to see. And this guy is after what he went through last year, right? With not only with the COVID situation and not getting to make his true opening day start, but also with the fact that he was, he was in a situation with his father and his father's passing,
right?
Not knowing whether he was going to mentally be able to bounce back from that. We always saw sparks of it in spring training, and we've just been seeing this rolling success this year, right? And it accumulated in that game. And one thing I gotta say about it is, for anybody out there that says, it was the 3rd inning, it doesn't matter, you don't understand baseball, right? If it's football and it happens in the first quarter, that affected the rest of the game.
All right, if we're going to go there, I'm going to put my stance out there on this whole fucking thing, because we texted about this in the chat. I know Drew and I kind of went back and forth on this.
I was just getting him riled up there.
Poking the bear.
I'm not a defender of Severino in any way.
It's a tradition around here. Anyway, for me, the frustrations that I have with Severino is completely defensively. He is a lazy catcher. And this was a prime example of it. Again, I would be frustrated when I saw this, regardless of the situation. If we're losing, if we're winning, if it was a no-no on the line, it doesn't matter when and how it happened. It was a 3rd strike. The ball was in the dirt. And instead of him dropping down and using his body and using the equipment that he's equipped with to block the ball, he came out of his stance and tried to pick the ball out of the dirt because he thought he was that good that he'd be able to do it, to be able to lazily get down the line and throw the ball down the line first to throw it around the horn. It was all about being lazy, and that's what drives me freaking crazy.
A chest protector is not a fashion statement?
No, it's definitely not. It's definitely not.
I thought that's what it was for. I didn't know. I thought we wore cups for fashion statements too. I mean, I didn't know that's why we had as a catcher. I didn't know as a kid that's why we wore things. Is to smother the ball. I didn't know that. I want to make sure, because I think a Major League Baseball catcher would understand and know that that's what that's used for.
Right. There was no excuse to come out of your stance. There's nobody on base, so there's no threat of somebody stealing, and you need to get up quickly to make sure that you can get the ball down to second or get the ball down to third or whatever you're doing. Literally fall on the ball. If you fall on the ball, it's a perfect game.
Yeah, that's you. I'm glad you kind of went into. I started it and triggered you, poked the bear, whatever you want to do. But no, this was a huge sticking point for me, and I've seen people defend Severino, and I think it's great that John Means, the picture that we saw after, where he signed a piece of him and or a picture of him and Severino, embracing after the no, and yeah, it's definitely something that's between the two of them that both of them will never forget. But ultimately, it's one of those things that you gotta step back and say, this is the epitome of why you cannot trust this guy behind the plate. Whether it's the first inning, the second inning, the third inning, whatever it may be, you've got to have somebody behind there that they can trust. And I honestly was listening to the game, and superstitiously when he got later and later, I purposely wasn't turning the game on. I just still kept it on the radio because I kept what I was doing. Didn't want to, jinx it myself kind of thing. But going back and watching it, I don't know if anybody noticed, was he throwing his curveball a little bit less throughout the rest of the game because of that? If obviously he wasn't feeling comfortable with the changeup, he's throwing the fastball, maybe he's throwing the curveball, keeping it on the inside of the plate rather than throwing it on the outside, as he did in that situation. But I didn't know if you guys happen to see anything like that, because that's the type of effect that a pitch like that, well, shit, I can't throw that curveball. Or late in the game, once it was on his mind, or once he was realizing that was the case, you start kind of questioning, okay, can I trust my curveball, or can I trust that if this goes bad that he's got it? Yeah, no, I don't think it phased Means at all. I got in my feelings about it just because, you and I were catchers and we value like defense, right? And that's, for me, you're at the highest level.
You're at the peak of baseball, and yet you can't do fundamentals well. It drives me fucking crazy. That's just my take on it.
All right, well, we'll switch gears back away from, not to take away from Means, but we'll switch gears a little bit. We already talked about Mullins and the offense. I think it's cool to see that not even just Mullins, Hayes is playing pretty damn good.
Yeah.
They're setting the table at the top. If you think back to that, the eighth inning, was it the eighth inning with the triple?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you think back to the eighth inning last night, you had that triple, but Hayes had a really good at bat where like he was behind 1-2 and fought off and got a walk. Mancini gets the hit, and then he comes in later on too. Stuff like that can help trickle. It trickles down.
Yeah.
So it trickles down to Mancini and Mountcastle. And you've seen, especially those two, they start off slow for whatever reason. Some players don't always come out the gate, looking like a Ronald Acuna type or
right.
Mike Trout. They don't all come looking out like that. And it looks bad in April because you're like, oh, he's batting 180. Well,
right.
Yeah, but it's also like if you're in a slump then, but in July you might have been down 10 points.
Yeah, I
now
remember
you're down like 70.
I remember going to one of the games that I went to this year and looking up at the lineup board, and there was like literally one person in the lineup hitting over 200, and that was Mullins.
Yeah.
At one point, I mean, that's how bad it wasn't. Just there's top two or three guys. It was the entire lineup struggling like that.
Yeah, because like even a Galvis, like it's quiet because
Yeah.
there's nothing like a Mancini is doing.
Right.
But like he's getting on base, which is kind of what you expect out of a player. Like get on base for the other guys, so at least you can get something going.
Right.
In theory. But it is nice to see what you've seen out of Mancini because you had the whole thing with last year.
Yeah.
And not playing with the cancer and stuff. So when you start off a little slow, you kind of worried a little bit even. But, I mean, now, look, 7 home runs, he's leading the team.
Yeah, I really wasn't worried about Mancini. I could tell in just looking at him, he looked to be pressing a little too hard now. And he even said this. It's been about 2 weeks now that he's reached that I'm comfortable level, and you can see it. I mean, he looks like the Mancini of old, and he actually says he feels better now than he ever has in his entire career.
And Mountcastle, like I'm going to be a little negative at first and try to turn it into a positive. He's still the worrisome thing in the minors with Mountcastle was his walks to strikeout ratio.
Yep.
And last year, it looked like, he's taking walks. He's not striking out as much.
And it was right away. When he came up, he was walking left and right, and you thought, well, this guy's really learned.
Well, shit. If you're doing it in the majors, we're going to forget everything that happened in the minors.
Exactly.
And that looks like it's coming back, and that looks bad early on. But if you go to the positive part of it, I mean, he's hitting 320 in the last 14 games.
Yeah.
So you want to see that ratio be better. But if that's still your ratio for those is bad and you're not hitting or you're not at least having productive at-bats, then it still looks bad. Then you're like, all right, well, what do we really have in this guy?
Exactly. So for me, for Mountcastle offensively, I don't think he's ever going to be a 300 guy, right? I don't think he's going to be that high average guy because he strikes out a lot. I'm happy if Mountcastle's top end, if his ceiling is a 270, 280 hitter, but then he's hitting 35 to 45 bombs a year. And I really think that Mountcastle has that kind of power, that kind of potential, especially in this stadium, to be able to do that. And you're starting to see those pieces come together.
Yeah, and that brings me to one of the main points I've been talking about. And it feels like this team, and you look back to the Buck years, and it hit that cliff.
Right.
But if you think back to those winning years, the roster was constructed for this stadium.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you watch this game, you watch the low output so far in runs or leaving too many men on. It's like, all right, but none of these guys feel like they could like hit for Camden yards.
Right.
So does that worry you at all? Like, do you think, or is it? Maybe that's that minors league. That's what the minors is going to catch up to. Like, obviously you didn't expect this thing to be a top 5 offense.
Right.
But that's the plan going forward.
It is a concern of mine, and I think they started to address that last year in the draft. Mm-hmm. They get Kerstad, who's that left-handed bat with the short porch there in right field. I think future-wise, he'll be
he raised the eyebrow when he was drafted.
Right,
I was kind of one of the guys like, that sounds like it's a guy that could play at Camden Yards.
Exactly, and that was the thing. None of us expected this guy to be picked, and hopefully, this illness that he has isn't a long-term thing, and he can get it straightened out, and he'll be good. But, I mean, this organization, think about all of the years that they were successful. Scott, I mean, you remember, right? Back in, like, the late 90s when they had that run. I remember I had a poster, and it was the Baltimore Bombers. They had 9 guys over 20 home runs in their lineup. Like that's when this team has been its most successful. Again, going back to the 2012, 2013, 2014 seasons and late 90s, it was built around power.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is so yes, it was built around power. We've had success being built around power. The difference is when we were built around power, we didn't necessarily always have the pitching, right? Or we were lacking in pitching in one way or the other. The big thing that you got to do is you got to keep in games, right? And you got to have a balance. The teams that are successful have a good balance of power and guys that can get on base.
Right.
I think they said something with Mancini, right? He's got the best OPS. I think he's second, or he was second in the league in the past day or two with OPS and runners in scoring position, right? And the average in runners in scoring position. So that combination of, a guy like Mullins, this is a balanced attack that we're seeing, and we're seeing some power in there. We do need to see a little bit of discipline out of some of these guys. We've seen some crazy hacks. Mountcastle is one that definitely comes to mind. I know that, you're spinning the negative into the positive, but he's a guy that it's like, come on, dude, you gotta be expecting that 0-2 off speed or 0-2 curveball. Right. And until you can actually make contact and see that that's what you're hitting and that's what's coming, they're going to keep throwing it to you. It's even when he was here, I love him. I still think he will be a Hall of Fame Oriole. Adam Jones, I still to this day screamed at the TV, screamed at him. It's a fucking curveball coming.
Curveball away, down in the dirt.
I'm throwing exactly because he just got used to swinging at it until he started laying off towards the end. We started seeing that, and then they started throwing. Okay, we'll throw him the 0-2 curveball inside. Then he gets a hold of it. Then they go back outside with it. So it's the discipline that you got to have, and these guys are going to have to, kind of get through. And that's what you're hoping that bench coaches like a Freddie Gonzalez are helping these guys to do. You're hoping that Hyde's talking with these young guys about this, and look, it's a learning experience, but we need to see the evolution of their games. I'm not asking for leaps and bounds overnight. What I am saying is I want to start to see that patience. I think Mountcastle, you said like he started well, right? And then he kind of tailed off. I look at that and say he started trying too hard to do what he did with his bat that he did in the minors, right? Yeah. He was pulling a Mancini and trying too hard. And so the strikeouts went up. And what they've got to do is get back in his ear and look back at the tape. I forget. I think it was Mancini actually that they were talking with him the other day. They were talking about on the game and broadcast that they said, what's the difference? And he said, we looked at tapes of before, back in 2019 of what I was doing when I was successful. And I was relaxed and you could see it in my body. And I went back to remembering that and feeling that. Yeah. That's what these guys are about.
I think part of Mountcastle's problem, too, is he came on the scene last year and obviously had a lot of success. He had a little bit of a different lineup built around him that had more power in it, that protected him a little bit more. And I think because he had success last year and he didn't really count as his rookie year, this being his rookie year, expectations were high. He probably put pressure on himself. Again, kind of like Mancini, pressing a little bit. But that goes to show the difference between a professional and a rookie. The professional was pressing, and he was able to adjust and adapt, and now Mancini's doing great. Mountcastle's got to get over that hump.
Well, I've said it before that one of the great videos I've ever seen. You guys probably all know the video I'm talking about. Pete Rose with Alex Rodriguez and Frank Thomas on the set. And Pete Rose talks about, we brought this up on the show before, but they said, how did you do so well? It's like, I didn't change my swing. Why would I change what got me to this point in my career? I'd move up in the box, move back, move closer to the plate, move away from the plate, choke up on the bat, choke down on the bat. 6 things. Right. And you think about that, and you think about the analytics, and it's like, where is this? If you can't hit the pitches away, choke down on the bat or scoot up on the plate. If you can't, if you're not able to turn on the balls that are on the inside, choke up on the bat. Go after those inside pitches, especially if they're swinging that way. And that's one of the things that it's predictable with guys like him. I think Galvis has made an adjustment.
Yeah, he looks good
a little bit. He's really looked good the past several games. He's starting to make contact, and he's doing exactly what we brought him on to do: make contact and play hustle baseball. That's what he was brought here to do, because that's what he would develop himself into.
I agree with that, but one of the things, another reason that they brought him here too, was he hit 23 home runs the year before, right? And well, not COVID year, but the year prior to that, 2019. And you think, playing in a smaller, stadium like this, that he would have a little bit pop. You're starting to see that. He has 2 home runs in his last 5 games and a double. So you're starting to see that extra base hit power come out. And listen, Elias somehow finds these dumpster dives at shortstop. He did it with Jose Iglesias and got a lot out of him, starting to get a good production out of Galvis now. I like what I'm seeing in Galvis, because I'll be honest, that first week or 2 of the season, I did not like what I saw at all.
Then by the time he had that little injury, oh no,
right,
damn it, and
exactly.
He came back from it. He's back to what he was doing before the injury.
Exactly.
The problem with all the hits, though, is the fact that we're doing well. The home runs come at times, right? But there's other times where we're just not seeing them, get the runners in scoring position around, right? We're not getting the runs and not giving our pitchers a chance. Right. We really have to be giving our pitchers a chance here.
They're striking out way too much. I mean, they're striking at a ridiculous clip. Like you said, leaving too many on in scoring position. Franco, who was the late addition to camp, started off good, especially driving runners in that were in scoring position, but he's kind of cooled off lately.
Really cooled off.
Yeah. Severino, again, the one benefit that you have from him is his offense, supposedly, and he hasn't looked good.
Yeah, he was 0 for 16 before the 2 singles last night.
But he has the second highest batting average on the team.
Yeah. Yeah, so run support right now is just not there. When you've got a pitching staff, a young pitching staff like this who, struggles getting in deep into games, and you're not putting up a whole lot of runs, like we've talked about many times, all it's going to do is tax your bullpen. So... right now, staff had a 3.91 ERA overall. Obviously, John Means no helped with that a little bit.
No helped out with that, but you've had a lot, and I said it last week. The bullpen, even though they had some hiccups this week, there's still a lot of bright spots coming out of there. Paul Fry and Plutko look
good.
They're in their roles, like they caught their role. They know where they're at. Even Salser, last year, he was up and down as a closer. This guy's not a closer, but
Nope.
I know last year was whatever, it is what it is. But now he's in that setup role. He seemed to be taking the setup role pretty good. Dylan Tate was doing pretty good. He just hit the IL with hamstring issues, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'll be honest, though. You're talking about closer, man. Valdez, that guy, for somebody whose top speed is 84, 85 mile an hour, man, his manipulation on his pitches and his movement on his pitches is ridiculous.
And that was, you talk about good. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so Fred, can we find the tape where about beginning of the year I said Valdez was the closer of the future?
I was not a fan.
Me, hell no, no way, not gonna happen.
No, I'll be honest with you. I am that prototypical closer guy. Come in, throwing 100-mile-an-hour, blow him down. I'm that wild thing kind of closer guy. That's the guy I like. Valdez is not that, but he's proven that he can be super effective. Go ahead, Ryan.
So a fan here, Adit Mahmoud, asking about Jorge Lopez, whether he'd be better off in the bullpen since he can't seem to get out of the 5th inning, I guess is what they're saying.
Yeah, so it does seem like the third time around the order with Lopez has been his biggest struggle. Like I said, last night he did get into the late into the 5th inning. I'm not ready to throw him in the bullpen yet, because who are you going to bring up to replace him? Right now, obviously, they've got the freaking bus running. I don't even know if there's going to be enough gas to support the bus right now with the way the shortage is going on, back and forth between AAA and the majors. I don't know. Obviously, Michael Ballman, he's dealing with some injury. That was a guy that I thought would be up here by now, but again, dealing with his injury.
He's coming along a little slower than they thought.
Yeah. Nobody really at the minor league level beating down the door to get an opportunity right now.
And two, we also, you got to realize too, you're in a rebuild.
Yeah.
So, you're still trying to see what these guys got. Okay, maybe he's not making it through the third time in the lineup, and it's more bad results than the good results like last night. But like you said, there's no one beating down the door yet.
Right. You're
not putting Hall and Rodriguez in there. If you guys think that, you don't know baseball yet.
Right.
And two, you got to see what you got, because this could be learning right now.
Yeah. And
it sucks now, but maybe the more he goes, and it's still the second week of May,
right?
Some guys can, by the time July rolls around, even the aces, that's when they get to the 7-8 full, complete games, if they're allowed to do that anymore.
And it's with Lopez, in my opinion, it's not a stuff thing. To me, this guy's got plus stuff.
That's the same thing with Kramer.
Right. It's not a stuff thing. Exactly. It's all learning, like the nuances of changing locations and changing speeds, especially, again, the second, third time you come through the order. These guys are professional hitters. They're going to pick up on your tendencies. They're going to pick up on your routines. You got to be able to change that. And that's what takes a good pitcher and makes them great. Not saying that Jorge Lopez will ever be great, but if he stays at this type of production, yeah, I could see him in the future, not this year, but in the future, potentially being a middle relief kind of guy.
I do want to defend myself real quick before we get out of the Orioles segment. We got a little bit more, but I do want to defend my favorite player in the last decade is Darren O'Day. So I do appreciate a little bit of pitching. It's not all I need home runs all day.
But he's got to be a submariner that comes.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I would really like them to find a submariner or a side armor. It's really entertaining. If we get some dominant guy like that to pitch to 9 batters a game, it'd be awesome.
I had to see him the other day in person in a Yankees uniform. That's disgusting.
So I did want to, because you guys mentioned the bus running up and down from Norfolk. What were your guys' feelings on Zach Lowther being sent down to Norfolk after just one start?
Anger. Because
really,
we've heard from Elias in the past that if a guy makes it to the big league club, we don't want to keep sending him up and down. We want you to be able to come up here and learn on the job.
Buck Showalter Express.
You know what I mean? Like, if I didn't know Duquette was running things again. Like, I have visions of that shit, because that was the problem. And I know a lot of people might see what Gausman's doing now, even though he was crap at Atlanta.
Right.
And he's doing okay in San Francisco right now. To me, it kept Yo-Yo and him, and it fucked everything up.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I've never been in that position, but I assume that's got to mess with your psyche in some sort of way.
So, no, I didn't like seeing it, especially when, like, they brought Lowther up for, like, a little bit of bullpen help because of the, like, days off.
Right.
And he had a scoreless inning for the 9th when they beat the A's. Okay, that's fine that you send him back down that situation. But to me, when you bring him back up, and now you're saying, no, you're a starter, and you're not in the bullpen now, you're a starter. Yeah, it was a bad game. It was a bad game. But then I feel like you're going back on your word a little bit. And then that starts making it starts to make you question a little bit about, all right, well, what kind of rebuild are we really in if you're saying some stuff about this, but then when you say something like this and you go back on it,
right?
What are you really saying?
Right.
What am I reading from you now?
I'm glad you said that, because like I saw that night, the first thing was pissed off and annoyed, right? You asked this guy to go now who knows what he was doing in the minors, but that game against the A's was what, 2.5 weeks ago?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So in 2.5 weeks, the guy is not going to go from a 1-inning bullpen type pitcher to a starter. And by the way, you threw him against the hottest team in Major League Baseball right now in the Red Sox. Right. I mean, what did you expect? So it's not a confidence booster. I don't know that it was a situation, and I don't know that he's the pitcher that you do that with. It's not a guy. If you're so high on this guy, you don't put him in a situation. I'm not saying he was put in a situation to fail, but it kind of feels like he was. In a 2.5 week period, you ask him to turn around and become a starting pitcher, even if you call him a starter rather than starting pitcher or whatever, that 3-inning or 2-inning opener. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I hate that damn thing. Right. But even if you're calling him that's a completely different scenario when it comes to that. He struggled in the first inning, and it starts to mess with a guy's confidence in that situation. So it wasn't the right team to bring him into that situation. It wasn't the right, time frame to bring him in that situation. I know you can say, well, what other choices did we have? Well, why did you send Bruce Zimmerman down? Right? I know he's had some struggles. See if he can come through it, right? You can't let this bus thing continue to happen. You've already done it with Kramer. It semi-worked maybe, but you then turn around and you do it with Zimmerman. Mm-hmm. Now you're doing it with Lowther. I wouldn't be surprised if Jorge Lopez has a bad game, even though he just had a decent game. If his next start is a bad start, I wouldn't be surprised to see them put him on the bus.
Right. I agree with your sentiment, and 100%, like, I feel the same way. The only justification that I can give it is if you continually go out there and your pitchers are getting pulled in the 3rd, 4th inning, right? And again, we talk about taxing the bullpen. These guys in the bullpen are going to be racking up innings and innings and innings. So it's real easy for us to say, hey, leave them up here, let them learn on the job, let them take their lumps and all of that. But you can't expect your bullpen to have guys out there every single night having to pitch 5-6 innings in a game, because they're going to get worn out, right? And you're going to create the necessity for that bust just because of that, right? Because of how much use that you're going to go through in the bullpen. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring a fresh arm up, somebody that maybe the opposing team has never seen before. There's no tape on them, just to give your bullpen a little bit of rest. Hopefully this guy can get me 6 innings. Hopefully this guy can get me 7 innings and rest my bullpen a little bit.
And maybe I'm more. Go ahead.
I was saying you can't do that against the hottest team in baseball. Yeah. I'm sorry. I
agree with that.
But that's why I said it wasn't the situation to bring him in, and then to send him down. It's not like you're bringing an arm back up. You brought Ryan McKenna up when you sent him down. Right. You brought an outfield option off the bench. That's all you did.
That you don't really necessarily need right now.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's what my other annoyance was last night. Okay, I know Lopez has his issues with getting into that, but he was doing so good. Like, he only had 72, 73 pitches and 4 hits.
But it's a close game at the time, and you get 2 guys on base.
Well, no, I got that too. But that's my thing. Like, if you're talking about taxing the bullpen, all right, well, if these guys aren't going in little situations like that, that could save, that kind of thing helps save the bullpen too.
That's a good point.
So if you're going to do this, the bus system and use that, I'm not saying they are, maybe royally we're going to use that as an excuse. Well, then you also almost have to let a guy like that go out, and when she got to the 5 2/3, he was having issues before that, but in the second, third, fourth inning,
right?
When you're looking really good and it's 5 2/3, I want to see you get over that hump, because how the fuck are you going to learn?
Right. No, I agree with that. And again, if you're in a season where you're legit trying to stack wins and you're legit trying to be a contender, then I understand pulling him, because the analytics, which we talked about, the analytics would tell you, he's coming through the third time in his lineup. The last 7 times that he's been out there, that he's gotten through the third part of his lineup, he has like a 46 ERA. It's something ridiculous like that right now. The 1 through 2, first 2 times through the lineup, his ERA is below 3. It's ridiculous. But again, to your point, in this type of a season where they're not really going after anything, if anything, they're going after the number 1 overall pick, at least I thought anyway, just not shaking out that way.
I think Detroit's way too bad to let that happen.
Detroit is awful right now. But
I'm going to get ready to bounce here in a minute, but I did have one other question, because I saw it. I was scrolling through, sitting in my hotel room last night, scrolling through, looking at some of the Orioles news. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this, because obviously they send Lowther down and they bring up McKenna.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that they don't bring up is a guy you've been clamoring for in Yusniel Diaz for the outfield. If you're going to bring up an outfielder, why is it not Diaz? Right?
Well, Diaz is unfortunately dealing with some injury right now. He's got a thigh upper leg injury that Brandon Hyde just confirmed. He left yesterday's game with that at Norfolk. So
right, and that's my point. Is that happened after you recalled McKenna? Right. Yeah. If you call up Diaz in that situation, does that happen to Diaz, and does that put your future outfielder in jeopardy, like
That's
they did?
Butterfly effect shit you just went with, Fred. Scott there. I don't know.
We will never know. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I don't know. Is Diaz the whole clock thing? Is that why they're not doing it? McKenna has already started. They've already brought him up and down, and they already kind of know what to expect with him. I don't know. Or was it just, wasn't so much that we needed an outfielder. We needed somebody on the or on the bench that has a little bit of speed, right, that we can bring in a pinch run situation, which they ended up using him in last night. So I don't know. I still want to see Diaz up here. I mean, we're in a position in the outfield right now where we just don't have enough spots for everybody that we've got, especially when you're hitting – Mullins and Hayes are hitting as good as they are. You got Santander, who's coming back here soon. There's just really not a whole lot of room for him.
My only guess with picking a McKenna is granted it's only 2 games. You are going to the National League. So when you get to those later innings and you have more pitching changes, pitching matchup changes, you need more pinch runners and situations like that. I guess that's a guy where all right, well, you're coming up for 2 games and you're going back down, because that's probably what's going to end up happening.
Yeah. That's true.
That's the thing, though, is if you're looking for outfielder depth, right? That's where my point when asking that question was. I think Diaz was your greater outfield depth. It gets him up here, gets him experience at a major league level, because we still don't actually know. We still don't have a timeline on when Santander's going to come back. He was put on, I think he's now on the 30-day injured list, because he originally was on the 10-day, then he was on the 10-day again, and now I think he's on the 30, because he hasn't even resumed baseball activities yet. Right. So we don't know his timeline to come back. He may not. It was originally, he'll come back in May. Well, guess what? We're in May and he's not back. So we need to look at that and say, okay, if he doesn't come back for another 2 months, is this the time to bring Diaz up, use one of his options? Does it start his clock? Yeah, sure. But he's a better option than McKenna. He's going to provide you more depth in the outfield. And if you want to have, a situation where you want to give somebody a break, you can put him out there, or you can put him in a pinch run situation or a pinch hit situation. The guy's got the speed. Right. As far as I know, he's got more speed than McKenna does. So to me, that's where it just didn't make sense that McKenna was the choice in there, unless it's the clock. And as we've talked about, at this point, I don't care about guys' clocks anymore.
I don't either.
I don't.
I'm right there with you. Listen, I don't disagree with you. Go ahead, Ryan.
So I just want to tell Scott, Tebow just texted me. He said he's out of bubble wrap for the dinner plate, so he needs you to get off the phone and go help him.
Well, okay. Before you go, I got one last thing, and I'm bringing this up to all of us because, again, you're a traditionalist, and you've been an Oriole fan since you were born, essentially, right? Born into it.
Yep.
Former Orioles manager, but really more well-known for his job as a pitching coach with the Orioles. Ray Miller passed away late Tuesday night at the age of 76. For me, Ray Miller was, again, he's what stands out to me about that late 90s team, that in the 96 to 99, era there. You got the Messina era, you got Jimmy Key, the Scott Erickson era, right? Like, he led that pitching staff. It's sad, man. This guy was one of the best in his time in Major League Baseball in pitching development at the Major League level.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I think of Ray Miller, I think a pitching coach, but, a lot of people thought he was a benching coach because there's all those pictures of him sitting on the bench with his leg crossed, leaning on one side, right, and watching the game, popping seeds. He was that, that guy that just kind of, he was relaxed about a lot of things. You didn't see him get fired up a whole lot, even when he was a manager. When Ray Miller got fired up, you got fired up.
Yeah.
Right. Because it was that, I'll call it in the modern day, it was that Cakes effect, right? When Cakes got mad, you knew it was the wrong call. Right. When Ray Miller got mad, it was the wrong call, period. Yeah. So, it's just sad to see, a lot of Orioles history there through, a few different generations, a few different rebuilds, really, that he was around for. It's really sad to hear, but remember his effect on the team and, what he brought for this team in the long haul. I know that it wasn't, some people will say, well, it wasn't really a winning record or anything. No, but he brought a looseness to that clubhouse, whenever he was around. So it's just sad to see and well wishes with his family. And really sad to hear that Ray passed.
Yeah. Obviously, like I'm not old enough to remember firsthand the Earl,
Weaver.
Earl Weaver, yeah, I couldn't think of his last name. Christ.
Oh my God.
The Earl Weaver era. I couldn't think. I wasn't around for the Earl Weaver era.
Drink tonight,
no, I haven't. I've only had half beer.
Ryan saved Fred on an Orioles segment, marking this one in the docket.
The Earl Weaver era, I wasn't around for. I mean, obviously, I've watched everything and heard about him over the years and all that stuff, and I know how great he was.
Wasn't around for
the whole Davey Johnson and Ray Miller era is what, for me, is the pinnacle of the Orioles coaching. I mean, until later on when Buck Showalter came around, that 1-2 combo of Davey Johnson and Ray Miller's was elite. So, Scott, appreciate you calling in. Appreciate you joining us, man. Hopefully, we'll have you back next week and have safe travels.
Yeah, I'll try to make it back. I'll think about it. We'll see.
All right, tell the tight end we said what's up.
I will do. Don't be surprised when he's. I got some news coming in fresh off the presses. Jacksonville is planning on running a Wildcat offense. At least 3 plays.
Scott is drafting Tim Tebow in the second round of our fantasy draft.
All right, Scott. We'll see you, man.
All right, see you guys.
See you. All right, Drew, it's time for this week's Liquor Stop Brew of the Week. And what did Jerry and the crew hook us up with this week?
This one, I got to read off the can because we weren't.
Well, I got your can super flux there.
There we go. So,
Old Ox Brewery.
Yeah, Old Ox Brewery is called Alpha Ox. So it's Meet Alpha, amazing hop character, satisfying malt backbone, smooth finish, A light malt sweetness gives way to dazzling citrus and pine, and thank you for that and interrupting me. Amateur hour.
100%.
Pine hoppy goodness. You know you want to try it. Don't overthink it. Just drink it. Cheers. It is actually it is pretty good.
Yeah, it is good. It's a pale ale. It's 4.5% alcohol by volume, so not a very strong beer, but it does have a good citrusy taste. So if you want to try it out, get up to Liquor Stop, tell Jerry and the boys that we sent you, get your 10% off. All right, Ryan, I don't know what you're doing over there, what buttons you're hitting.
Apparently I got real fat fingers because the guest cam is doing that is what the problem is. So we shall fix that later.
All right. It is time for some Shell and Tell, man. What has been going on at the University of Maryland?
Oh, my. Lots of things have been going on at the University of Maryland. Like you said, we all got to go down there recently, so that was a big step in the right direction.
It was.
And we also should talk about some former Terps. I mean, a former Terp who played for the Pittsburgh Panthers last season was Mr. DJ Turner. Got picked up after the draft, actually, undrafted free agent with the Raiders. Wish him well. I mean, he only left the Terps because he was a senior, and they canceled his season.
Yeah.
Midsummer, they said, we're not playing Big Ten football. So, as a Terp fan, you can't have any ill will towards that. The man was trying to get an opportunity. He left on good terms, and we wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah, DJ Turner went up to Pittsburgh in the 1 year that he was there. It was super productive. He's a guy that I think should have been drafted, and the fact that he didn't get drafted, there's no doubt he'll make an NFL roster, whether it's the Raiders or not, because the Raiders do have a decent amount of wide receivers right now. I don't know what they're going to do, but he will make an NFL roster, especially at least as a returner. But I think he can bring a lot of value to a team as a receiver.
I was really shocked he didn't get drafted, and especially with the number of players that got drafted from his team. There were Pittsburgh players all over the draft, so it was an interesting thing. But really, wide receivers, there were lots of people that were left over after the draft. I don't know why it ended up that way, just the way it is.
Well, the man of the night, the man of the hour, the many hours that
Mr.
we waited
Underwear Olympics.
Underwear Olympics himself, Jake Funk. Did get drafted. We talked about it. I had him pegged a lot higher. I had him in the late fourth, potentially fifth round. Right. I'm sure he was hoping he was right. But listen, he goes to a very good organization. He gets drafted by the Rams at pick 233 in the 7th round. You know me. I'm a huge Jake Funk fan. There's nobody that's going to outwork Jake Funk. The only thing that you can say a knock on him is the injury history, right? But he's proven time in and time out that he doesn't let that deter him. And he's willing to put into work.
Yeah, I mean, nobody works on his body more than he does. I mean, he just puts in work with the team, without the team, elsewhere. And now that he actually has more and more resources for that, as getting to this level, you can only expect it to get more. It's a really good spot for him. I think the personality fits.
I agree too.
I think Jake Funk loves that he's sitting out in L.A. He looks like Mr. L.A. If you have my opinion.
Yep.
So I think he's going to have a lot of fun out there, whether he ends up on their roster or not. Again, he's definitely going to be somewhere. He's going to be productive. I hope it is with the Rams because I think it just fits him really well.
And that 233rd pick overall has a little bit of a Raven tie to it because that's actually where former Ravens running back Justin Forsett was drafted. Now, it wasn't to the Ravens, to the Seahawks, but either way.
I found that really interesting. It just came up randomly on Twitter. Apparently, every year, Justin Forsett reaches out to whoever the 233rd pick is to give them hope that you still can have a decent NFL career. Look what I did with this, irrelevant type pick. It's not Mr. Irrelevant, but it's pretty close. So it's very cool to see those guys. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff after the draft where it talks about the 6th, 7th round picks that end up with big careers. But Justin Forsett reached out, so I've never had the chance to talk or meet Mr. Jake Funk, but I wish him the best and hope we get to meet him soon.
Right.
I thought that was really cool that I had that little Ravens tie, even though we didn't get to have Jake on our team.
Right. So I'm going to put out my second podcast plug of the night. I've already plugged one. I'm going to plug another one. This is one of my favorite podcasts. I Am Athlete. I've said it multiple times. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it yet, but if you haven't, subscribe to it. Brandon Marshall, Chad Ochocinco, Fred Taylor, and Crowder are all on there, and they're all great. They all work well together. Well, former Terp Stefon Diggs was on there this past week, and he got pretty personal, man. It was a really good interview.
Yeah, I liked a lot of things about it. The most interesting thing that I found was a little bit of Edsel hate. Nothing gets me going more than trying to erase that period of the Terps history.
Right.
But apparently Diggs kind of inferred that after that kidney lack in the Penn State game, when he took that hit, that he wanted to come back. He was approved to come back, and Randy Edsel didn't let him come back. And he inferred that was because Edsel didn't want him leaving school early. And
right.
Diggs' plan was to put enough on tape to leave that year to go to the NFL.
Right.
That also goes with the whole thing with Jake Funk was not offered by Randy Edsel.
Right.
Mike Locksley was there as an offensive coordinator at that time. He was pounding the table, telling him we need to offer this guy. He's the number one rusher in Maryland history. He set all kinds of records out there in Damascus, but they wouldn't give him an offer. The only reason Jake Funk, who just got drafted, got on the Terps squad was because Mike Locksley got the interim head coach title right at the end of the year, so he was able to last second throw him an offer and get him on board. Jake wanted to play for the Terps the whole time.
Right.
He even came down to a camp and tried to get there, but he couldn't get an offer. He had basically given up. But because this interim head coach, Mike Locksley, comes in, who ends up being his head coach 3 years later, it all worked out for the best.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the Diggs interview, like I said, if you get a chance, I Am Athlete, check it out. It's really good. I mean, he talks very candidly about his upbringing. Obviously losing his father at a young age and kind of having to take on that fatherly role for his brother.
Taking care of his brothers.
Yeah, took care of his brothers. It's really eye-opening to know kind of what he's had to go through and how early in life he had to mature. So it's a really good interview. But staying in the NFL, right? We're kind of on this NFL theme. DJ Moore getting picked up, his option out there in Carolina.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about the best Terp wide receiver in the NFL, we got to talk about the second best down there, Mr. DJ Moore.
That's right.
So he got picked up his 5th-year option, and I'm sure he'll get even more money the next year. He's doing really well down there. It's always good to see these guys continuing their success.
Let me ask you this question, though. Is Sam Darnold good for DJ Moore's future?
I mean, maybe. DJ Moore was awfully successful at the Terps with these 5-yard dump offs. And
it's true.
If you're going to downgrade your quarterback situation, you're going to expect a lot more 5-yard dump offs for 80-yard touchdowns that DJ was an expert at.
I think more importantly, and what's better for DJ Moore's career is a healthy Christian McCaffrey.
Definitely.
Getting him back, getting him healthy.
Might get him less touches, but
it'll get him less touches, but it'll get him more productive touches because he's going to have more space to work in because guys are going to have to account for Christian no matter where he is on the field.
Yeah. Well, we talked about being in the spring game. What was your thought process of the whole system, like the seating arrangement, the whole day? What was that for you?
No, I liked it. I mean, there was probably, I'd say, 4,000-ish people there.
Yeah, they only sold 5,000 tickets, and I think we did pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm being real, they weren't doing a whole lot to monitor, as far as the pods go. People were just kind of sitting pretty much wherever they wanted. There was definitely groups bigger than 4 like they were supposed to be.
Awful lot.
Yeah, definitely clusters.
Mostly the college kids, but a few others.
But no, I enjoyed the experience. For me, it's just getting back out there and having real live football in front of you, not having to watch it on a TV. The whole experience was good. Obviously, they only had a couple of vendors open food-wise, and all that stuff, and a lot of options or alcohol and that kind of stuff. But
I have to eat crow, just saying that right now. There were college kids there.
Yeah.
I told you 0.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe
whole lot of crop tops walking around.
Maybe we've turned a corner here. Maybe not being allowed to go to football makes these kids want to go to football. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
be great to get these guys back in the stadium. So I can hope.
Yeah.
Now, on the field.
Right. There was a lot to like in this game, though. I mean, Talia didn't look great. Struggled in the game, especially on his fades. There were multiple attempts, fades into the back corner of the end zone that he was throwing a few yards over the head that nobody was catching.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about wind, and I don't remember it being
it being windy. But it is different down on the field than it is in the stands because it's whipping around the stadium and it affects the field differently.
Yeah, well, we were well sheltered in our Section 7 seats. Maybe on the other side it was a little bit whippy.
Right. I think the biggest thing that stood out for me in this spring game had to have been having production from the tight end position back. You had Chig Okonkwo come back, and he was immediately impactful. You got Baby Gronk out there. He didn't have a ton of opportunities, but he
looked good.
He looked good in the role, and this kid's a freshman, right? Yeah. I mean, he's just only going to get bigger. He's only going to get better. But I think all that's going to do is open up things even more for the wide receivers, because last year the wide receivers were great and they didn't have to account for a tight end at all. Now you've got multiple threats from that position. Talia's looking for them. I think that bodes well for this offense.
Well, you talk about receivers. The guy that used to be a receiver is now a tight end, Mr. Corey Dyches.
Yeah.
I mean, his numbers, height, weight, does not make him sound like he could be a tight end at all. We've talked about that one here before, that we were not looking forward to that. But my man did it.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't in a lot of blocking situations. But he was able to body up on some linebackers, make really good contested catches.
Great hands.
Great hands.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything come near him that wasn't caught.
Agreed.
I think that it's a much bigger bump in that second tight end spot than I thought. He'll be fighting it out with C.J. Dupree. C.J. Dupree definitely has the ability to block more than Corey does. It's still a much bigger body. But honestly, I think Corey's going to have that position locked.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I kind of gave you a quick synopsis of some of Tua's struggles, but obviously this offense is going to live and die by Tua staying healthy, one, and his production, two.
Well, we said when we start with the same quarterback at the beginning of the year that we end at the end of the year, we will be back bowling.
Right. What was your take on Tua's performance?
He seemed to have a great grasp of the offense, connected well with both the wide receivers and the tight ends. Like you said, that end zone fade, threw it 3 or 4 times. They kept trying to get him to connect on it. It just wasn't working. You know, if they have to take that out of his repertoire, they have to take it out of his repertoire. But I think he'll have it fixed by the fall. If that's the one thing you got to work on, you'd hope a guy at that level could fix it in the next couple months.
I agree.
I thought that he did a really good job. The line looked really good in front of him.
Yeah, except for the right side.
The right side struggled. Who we were a little worried about. I am very high on Emilio Moran, very high. But he did play guard his entire high school career, basically. Right. And you're moving him to a right tackle position. He's plenty big enough to play it.
Oh, yeah.
But apparently he either just doesn't have the footwork down right, as your lineman expert talked about. It's a whole different thing. Both right and left, both guard and tackle. So it's new to him. I'm hoping that's the biggest problem. But honestly, it would be great if we could get a plug-and-play tackle over the summer as these grad transfers start, as the scholarships open up from some of the guys that are departing the team, and we're able to get somebody. So it would be awesome if he ended up being available at the guard position where he's most natural.
Right. I'll tell you another thing. I mean, the wide receivers are as advertised. If Dante Demas, if there's any way for him to have gotten bigger and better, I mean, he looks the part.
Every time you see him, man.
Telling you, the first time I saw him, as I guess he was a sophomore when we went to the spring game the first time, I said, NFL player. And it's signed, sealed, and delivered. Bearing injury, this guy is 100% a first or second round wide receiver. I don't care what his production is this year. He has every tool you would want at that position.
And he's improved so much every year. I mean, Ahmed told us he was like a borderline take even out of high school. They weren't sure he was even going to be offered. And this is a guy that looks like a first-round draft pick.
Right.
Just a few years later. It's amazing the progress he has. Hopefully it keeps showing and he goes and collects his bills this year.
Right. Mind you, this wide receiver core looked great, but one of its better players in Jayshon Jones was standing on the sideline in sweat. So add him into the mix. Again, they're about 6-7 legit wide receivers deep.
Yeah, I want to give McDougal a little shout out.
Yeah.
He was playing on the number 2 team, and honestly, he looked really good, really quick, really shifty. He was probably the shiftiest player on the field. He was dropping people on the ankles.
Right.
Again, he's buried pretty well. I don't know that you're going to see a lot out of him. They are running numbers out there. They showed last year they were going to run really deep in the wide receivers, keep a lot of people fresh. So you're going to see him every now and then, but hopefully he sticks around and is a really big after this year, and we have a few departures.
Right, I agree. Another position group we were watching specifically because of our conversation with them, the special teams. Had a special eye on Anthony Pecorella. Pinned him pretty deep a couple of times. Looked good.
Looked good. Big leg.
Yeah.
Great pinning him in the corners. Good hang time. I mean, we've had now our 2 punter guests. It's gonna be a battle for our All-American punter and
I don't think it'll be a battle this year.
No, not this year with the short season. I think Anthony's got a really good shot at it. But wish them both the best. And really, I don't hope to see him play very often. As we talked in our interview, I hope Pecorella only sees the field once or twice, maybe no times a game.
Right.
But if he is out there, he's going to do a great job.
Well, we talked about this team having one open scholarship, I believe, still left for this coming season.
There was one, and now we've had our first departure, so we'll be up to 2. Maryland defensive back Erwin Bird entered the NCAA transfer portal. Hasn't officially announced anywhere, I don't believe. I haven't seen anything about that. So I guess technically it's not open until he actually goes somewhere else.
Right.
But we look to have 2 open scholarships. Bird was a redshirt freshman, started in 2 games last year, totaling on 5 tackles. 5'10", 180 out of Powder Springs, Georgia. That's on the small side. You've seen what Loxley's been doing over the last years. He's been drafting a lot, or not drafting, he's been recruiting more of these 6'1", 6'2 type cornerbacks. He's been building a very big secondary.
Right.
So I think that he was just buried. He just had too many guys come in that he thought he was behind. And he's going to go somewhere and find some playing time, and it's good for him.
Yeah, good for him. Like I said, I mean, in my opinion, you can never have enough depth, especially at the cornerback position, because you can always account for a couple of injuries there. But again, if it's playing time, this guy is low on the pecking order, and if he's going to go to a smaller school just to get started, starting time, I don't blame him.
He could totally get some playing time somewhere. He was a 3-star prospect, number 170 cornerback in the class of 2019, and he committed to Maryland over some pretty good schools in Army, Mississippi State, Buffalo, Coastal Carolina, and Colorado.
So he'll have some suitors.
He's going to have some suitors. I just think that he didn't fit the scheme. Obviously, we are going for a type, and it is tall and long.
Right.
That's just what he was buried.
Well, what this does, though, is because we've talked about what are the Terps going to do with this one open scholarship. You and I have been clamoring for offensive line depth, right? Or the other option would be, another backup quarterback. Do they bring in another guy? Well, this opens up 2, so now you can kill 2 birds with those 2 stones. Do you think that that's the path that they go, quarterback and offensive line, or do you think they stack offensive line twice?
I think that you're probably going to look at offensive line and linebacker.
That's a good point.
Udinsky is still on track to come back this fall.
It's amazing.
Which is unbelievable. Now, I did retweet recently, I don't know if anybody that follows us on Twitter, there was a baseball player that tore his ACL and 1 month later was hitting a double. That's pretty unbelievable that we've reached this amount. It's that used to be like a career ender.
Yeah, career ender, and then it was at least a year. At least.
It was like 18 months to a year to 18 months.
Right.
And now we're doing miracles. And I don't know what's changed. I haven't seen anything like, no papers about it. It feels like this should be front page news exactly what has changed.
Right.
Because it doesn't seem like there's no named surgeon for this. It's not like some miracle worker. Like you had the elbow guy. What was the
James Andrews.
Yeah, James Andrews
yep.
that did that surgery. You would think that the way the ACLs have impressed that we would know who made this happen.
Right.
Because it could help the Terps a lot. We seem to lose ACLs more than we lose games.
Right. That's true. Well, let's switch gears a little bit, man. Let's jump out of our comfort zone because we got to give some credit where credit is due to an undefeated team.
Undefeated team.
The men's lacrosse team.
That flashes me back to a Syracuse game.
2-0, baby. 2-0.
Men's lacrosse finishes their Big Ten season 12-0 with both a Big Ten regular season and tournament champions. They were ranked number 1 in the nation going into what was supposed to be the NCAA's tournament assignment. You would think that's a lock for the number 1 spot.
Wait. They were 12-0.
Yeah, haven't beat anybody.
They won their conference.
Uh-huh.
They won their conference tournament.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And everyone they played except for Michigan had at one point been in the top 20 this year.
Got it.
None of them ended in the top 20.
So
I'll give them that.
They didn't end up with the number 1 overall seed.
No. So they probably got number 2, right?
Still disappointed.
Nope, not number 2 either. Our old foes, those bitter ex-girlfriends, the ACC, seem to have a grasp on the entire NCAA process for the lacrosse tournament here. Duke and UNC, hell, we like to hear those names in front of us, both ranked number one UNC, number 2 Duke.
How many losses do they have?
4 combined, 2 each.
See, I'm not a real good with math. Specialize in math.
2's more than 0, though.
Yeah,
right?
2's a lot more than 0.
I guess it's all they're going all on
strength of schedule.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. Is this makes me angry? Is they said that the strength of schedule was basically useless this year, which makes sense because the Big Ten only played the Big Ten. So
right.
How are you going to go with strength of schedule versus the ACC, this, that, and the other?
Right.
Another complaint that I saw was that the Big Ten didn't play anybody out of conference, and the ACC did. Well, I looked at the ACC schedules. The best team they played out of conference was Towson. Like, what? What are you? How is that helpful? It wasn't like they reached across and played another Power 5 like power. I mean, I know that there are really good lacrosse teams in a bunch of other divisions. It's not quite like football and basketball where it's Power 5 or bust.
Right.
But I didn't see anybody out there that was screaming at us.
Beyond record, though, the Terps were the highest scoring team in the nation, and the only undefeated will now have a home opener versus Vermont. And if the tournament goes to chalk round 1, we will have to go on the road to Notre Dame.
Yeah, on the road.
Who were designated as a round 2 game site.
Yeah, so that just happens to be some dumb luck. The round 2 sites are picked. It's not like highest ranked home host.
Right.
It's picked. So South Bend is one of the locations for round 2, and Notre Dame was one of the 5 ACC teams that made the 16-team field.
Okay, so explain that to me. I don't understand how the field works with lacrosse. How does that break down?
So this year, it's a little bit different, but this year there was 16 teams. 8 of them were automatic bids, so your conference championships, just like with basketball.
So half of the field are your conference champions.
So ACC is going to have 1.
Okay.
There's 8 more people to go, and 4 of those 8 were other ACC teams.
Wow.
And again, the best ACC team had 2 losses.
Yeah.
The last one that made it was Syracuse, who had 4 losses. I get that the Atlantic Coast is where lacrosse is good. I get it.
Right.
I know 100% in high school and mostly in college. But it has changed. Over the last decade, there are a lot of other places playing lacrosse very well.
Right.
Just in the Big Ten, you got Rutgers that moved over with us. Rutgers, New Jersey is another hotbed for lacrosse.
Right.
Penn State.
Penn State has been pretty good.
Denver's done pretty good lately.
But Rutgers was a bubble team. They were the ones I was still expecting it. Penn State kind of fell off throughout the year. So Big Ten definitely didn't play great. But it's just kind of unbelievable to me that you can give a team full half of the openings. You can't do that.
You know what I say, Ryan? I say screw the ACC. Let's line up against the ACC each week, and let's just roll them.
Yeah, I hope that works out. I know mathematically it's very unlikely we have to play all 5.
Say,
but
go
I
fuck
really
yourself,
hope, like game 2 we're playing Notre Dame. I hope week 3 we're playing either UNC, Virginia, Duke, or just keep rolling straight through. I hope all the rounds is Maryland versus an ACC team, and we just show them we don't give a shit about you, ex-lover.
That's right. Good luck, Terps. Bring it home, man.
No rules. No boundaries. 2 topics. 30 seconds each. It's time for the 2-minute warning. All
right, Drew, it's time for the 2-minute warning. We haven't talked about this yet. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first? You're going to go first.
Excited about
if you all like question 1, stick around for the after hours. I'm going off for about 30 minutes.
We're all walking off then.
James, Ryan, who's reading them off this week?
I got it.
All right. Let's go, James.
Is Tim Tebow making the team, or is this a Myers just seeing if it could work out or a handout?
Firstly, I never liked this guy. I know you guys didn't know me then, like when he was like a starter, because that was like 1,036 days ago or some shit. Look,
3,000.
Look, he's trying out a tight end. He tried out at baseball. It took him 4 years to realize he couldn't cut it. I mean, damn, if he had a real season last year, he probably would have been playing with the Mets. He's getting this opportunity at tight end because it's his coach. Half the organization probably doesn't. It's like already said they don't like it. So no, he's not going to make the club.
Yeah. The Jaguars traded Josh Oliver to the Ravens for like a 7th round pick, right? You don't think that guy wouldn't be a better option than Tim Tebow? Christ. No, this is all about a gimmick. They're going to bring him in a tight end role, but they're obviously going to be using this guy in weird packages, weird roles, and I get it. Like, if you want to add something different as a trick play, cool. But Tim Tebow, really, I feel like that ship sailed.
Yeah. And the last one, were you guys impressed with DK Metcalf's 10-3 in the 100 meters, or should he just concentrate on football?
Both.
When you got the NFL saying, hey, we're kind of rightfully so, you get hurt outside, not showing up to the OTAs, hey, you're shit out of luck. To sit here and almost kind of like back this guy when he's doing it, that's bullshit. Is it impressive? Yeah, because we've seen him do it. Like, we've seen how fast of a freak of nature he is. But for the NFL to back him and be so cool with it, That's the negative side that I don't like.
I think I agree with your point, but I think that's the risk that the player took. The player knew that he could potentially lose his contract or void his contract if he does get hurt. But I love this because this is a guy who's actually putting his money in his mouth, where his mouth is. This is a guy that's facing up to it. All this talk about 40 times and all that stuff, and I could do this on a track back in the day. Well, he went out there, and yeah, he finished last, but it had to have been like the best last place finish I've ever seen. Like the dude legit hung with superstars, elite athletes for that length of time. It was super impressive in my opinion. All right, Drew. Good show, man.
Good show.
Yeah, first time you and I have got a chance to do this together up here. Held your own. You did good.
Try.
All right, sign us out.
All right. Oh,
I got you, man.
Are you Ryan's gonna do it?
Yeah, I'm a rookie. So.
Hey, you guys, check us out on birdlandbs.com. Not only can you find all the episodes there and your link to our show and tell close to my heart, you can also find all the cool gear. Got a few people wearing it around here today, or none. We struck out today. No one's wearing our Birdland BS gear. Check out me at TerpsBSpert. You got Fred and Drew up there at FredUpDLBS, at Drew27N. You got Mr. James over here at JamesBond2032. Follow Birdland BS on all your social media accounts, YouTube, Twitter, anywhere you can find us. If you have an opinion or topic you want us to talk about, use the hashtag That'sBLBS. That's That'sBLBS. Your comments will come up on next week's show. Check us out on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, wherever you want. If you don't catch the live visual footage, a lot easier to catch up with us on the podcast. Thanks. Until next time, we'll see you next Tuesday, 7:30. You know the time, you know the place, and stick around for After Hours because we're going to eat Tebow. Get out of here.
See you guys. It's time for the after party.
Craig Zero says my question. I am not part of the brain trust of Birdland BS, so I don't know what this question is.
I got it. Let me pull it up.
All right,
here.
that's cool.
Good.
Meanwhile,
Tim
Tebow is on this squad because he is blackmailing Urban Meyer. Now, I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's got receipts from when he was getting paid at Florida. I don't know if he's got proof that Urban Meyer knew Hernandez was out there killing motherfuckers while he was playing on the team. But that's the only reasonable reason he could be on a squad. There is no reason for him to be on this team. There's probably 60 tight ends better than him sitting at home right now that just missed out on the NFL draft.
Exactly. This is like that whole buddy situation. I hate it.
That's what would make sense, though.
I don't think he makes the team.
If he showed up as a quarterback's coach or as like a special assistant, great. That makes sense. Somebody that knows his offense that can help Trevor Lawrence get up to speed quickly and understand how to run it. Awesome. But don't tell me he's a fucking tight end. Put him on your coaching staff.
Right.
Like, why won't Tebow go away? I had no idea the Christian church had this much power. I knew they could just move people around and hide child molestation, do other things. But I didn't know just praying on TV meant that you get to be an NFL player, you get to be an MLB player, you get to be an ESPN analyst. Just because, like, you said John 3:16 on your eye black, I don't understand. Yeah. Why won't this guy go away?
Yeah. I'm surprised he's not hosting Jeopardy yet.
He's a minor league. He's an amazing athlete. Amazing athlete. He's a minor league basketball player, a minor league football player, a minor league baseball player. He could play minor leagues in anything. bro, you're not a pro. Just get out of here.
Right.
It's done.
And
It's
accept
over.
it. I 100% agree with you. I am over the Tebow thing and have been for about a decade now at this point. He's been playing baseball now for what, the last like 5-6 years? He's been playing baseball for a while.
You rolled your eyes out like you're doing with it now, and then like, okay, we kind of hung around, but okay, you hung around because you hung around the fucking minors. Like, you weren't
because
doing
you're
nothing.
selling
You
jerseys in the
That's
minors.
all it was.
Real
That's
quick,
the only reason. And
real
I
quick
still don't know why.
about baseball with the Mets. I just happened to turn in, check the scores, and to lead off the top of the 8th, Hayes hit a rocket shot to center field. As the center fielder is catching the ball, it goes in his glove. He hits the fucking wall, busts his face on the wall, drops the ball. Hayes goes to third, and they're leading 2-0 right now.
John Means got another shutout. Is he still pitching?
No. He got pulled as a pinch runner in the bottom of the 6th.
Okay, the bottom of the 6th.
He went 6. He didn't give up any runs. Obviously, he went 6, but I think that's the situation because he only had like 75 pitches. I saw that. But,
70 pitches.
It has to be with the National League.
But he was up to
taking him
bat, so they pulled him for a pinch
right.
hitter.
Just the nature of the beast.
All right, so Craig Zero did send us a question this week. He says, after hearing Giro's press conference, it seems that he's been forced to change his offensive scheme in the passing, and he knows that if he doesn't deliver, he's gone. Who do you think is going to replace him if it happens? Honestly, I think that's probably why the Ravens brought in, the Keith Williams and the Ty Martin, these guys are brought in, one, to force his hand because he needs to develop, and if he can't be creative enough to come with passing scheme options, well, then you have to have somebody there to be able to do that. I don't know what it's going to look like next year if he doesn't deliver, if these guys could potentially fulfill him. But if we're looking internally, I would think it would be one of these guys because there's really nobody else waiting in the wings other than maybe James Urban.
Yeah.
James Urban would be the only other guy that I could think might take that next step as a potential offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, and especially if it's a mid-season cut, you're not going to bring out from external anyway.
Right.
So you would automatically think it's one of those two, and I guess at that point it's just whoever is like the more like ready,
right,
or Harbaugh wants.
Right. And the thing with James Urban is James Urban and Lamar have a really good relationship together, which is obviously going to be important. I just don't know what he brings as far as concepts go, because if he's got all these great concepts, well, then why is he not in Greg Roman's ear already? So that's the only hesitation I have about James Urban. The market's going to dictate what offensive coordinator is going to be out there and available and who would be the right fit. But I don't think anybody's making a brash decision and bringing somebody brand new that Lamar's going to have to learn a whole new system in. I think if you're going to make that move, it comes internally.
Yeah.
Any other questions out there that we might have missed out on, Ryan?
I haven't seen a lot of questions out here. I know you got a new segment for us, right?
Oh, well, not really. I was going to do that next week, but I do have some questions in here.
It's typed here, Fred.
We're not waiting for Scott. I typed that myself.
All right, now I know why that happened.
I thought we were at the time when he brought it up a couple of days ago. I thought we were. I thought it was like the new segment. I didn't know.
So it's the after hours, right? I thought it's there's no rules. Nothing is consistent with this segment, right? But I wanted to add a little bit of fun,
especially
right?
Since the only way this segment ever runs long is when there's an argument. Otherwise, it's like a couple minutes and it's like, all right, guys, see you later.
Drew, did I not tell you this would go exactly the opposite of what you found last time?
Craig says, I like the new Scott.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So eventually what we're going to do is I'm going to build a button that you guys are going to be able to hit twice a show, anytime you want, in the middle of a show. It could be in the middle of a conversation with a random would you rather question segment. Out of nowhere, completely, it could break up in the middle of Scott and I getting in a heated debate. Bam, you hit a button and we got to stop what we're doing for would you rather question. So
Scott's not going to stop.
No, I'm going to make him stop. We'll make him stop. So this week's would you rather question, I want all of your responses. So James, put those headphones on. If you dropped your phone in a porta potty, would you leave it be or go in and get it?
That thing's gone for the world. Sorry. You just go get a new one.
So you're going to let $1,300 just go right down the tube.
Well, he don't have an iPhone, so it doesn't matter.
Fuck iPhone, first off.
You can find a Samsung on any
iPhone,
pawn shop.
iPhone, it's worth it. No, any phone. I don't know. I'm not playing with that. No.
Ryan?
You know how cheap I am,
know
bro.
you're cheap, right? So you going in elbow deep and getting this thing?
I'm an analytical person on top of it, though. I'm gonna take a look. You can see in porta pots, and if it's in urine, I'm just gonna assume it's broken and I'm leaving it. But if it's sitting on top of a big dookie, I'm gonna pluck that bitch out there and clean it off. I'm gonna save me some money.
Yeah. If it was anywhere else, if we were in a public bathroom and I knew that there were sinks and everything in there that I could wash myself off with, I'm going in and getting
I'm gonna rub that thing on the grass just like you did when you got some poop on your shoe as a kid.
Man.
I'll throw away the case that's in. That's fine. I can pluck that off there and throw it away. It'll be all right. It'll be all right.
All right. And one more before we wrap up for the night. Another random one. What's that?
James.
Alex says he's getting it.
Does James have an answer?
James, what are you doing?
Well, first off, I don't have insurance on my phone.
Yeah, me either.
So
that's option number one.
Incentive to go in.
No,
because I'm cheap, so I don't have it.
I might just call and add the option of insurance because you're allowed to just add it whenever you feel like it, and then make a claim 2 days later.
I'm sure there's some.
That is insurance fraud, my friend. Insurance fraud 101.
Recorded now.
Great answer, though. I love the fucking answer.
That is a good answer. All right, another one. Completely random. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
What the fuck are we talking about?
100 duck-sized horses, there is no question at all. Not even close. It'd be a million times easier. A horse-sized duck?
Yeah.
You would get 8 so hard. Can you imagine?
Ducks are so fucking aggressive.
Bro, yes.
And if it's the size of a
Like,
horse?
think about a big duck is what? A Canadian goose. You ever been chased by a Canadian goose?
Yeah,
yes, everyone has.
Yep.
Anyone that's over 4 years old has been chased by a Canadian goose. You know how hard that bill is? It is now 8 feet tall and like slamming this 3-foot bill into your skull. You're dead in seconds.
But you got 100 horses coming at you. They're shaped like ducks.
Size.
But they're horses.
I weigh 300 pounds. I'm jumping up and down these horses. No problem. These things are dead in 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Oh, man.
I don't even know how to answer
This
that.
is the kind of podcast I'm into. Let's go.
Scott's called it.
What do you got, Drew? 100 duck-sized horses.
That's like 100 cuts.
But they're all coming at you at once. They're not coming in a line.
They're kicking your
100.
shins. What else are they doing? Like, that's the worst thing they can do is be kicking your
pile up on
shins.
top of each other. It's like
They're
fucking
just-
the zombies from World War Z. They're piling up on shit. Overtaking
And I'm
buildings.
slapping them.
Slap them. Here comes the next wave. There's too many of them. You could run away you probably run away a lot quicker from one horse-sized duck than.
Oh no, those ducks, man, when they get moving, they're quick.
you see
Plus,
how
they can
fast
fly. Ducks fly.
Think how fast their feet go when
You
they're
imagine
swimming,
a
bro.
fucking horse flying?
They walk across the road slow, but they fly a little bit faster.
Listen.
And when they're swimming, their feet are like this.
All right. I see your one horse-sized duck,
man.
and I raise you that 100 deep flying V coming at your ass. You can't handle it.
Yeah.
I'm 100% fighting these tiny horses.
One thing for sure, I'm glad the shit may hopefully never happen.
Yeah, right. James, which way are you going? Horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
100 duck-sized horses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's an easier challenge.
I think I could probably outrun them too.
That's probably true. That's probably true.
But like what you said, that big ass beak coming at you.
That bill is gonna be heavy, bro.
Yes.
That's gonna be
That thing's gonna hurt.
bill.
They're so aggressive.
So the closest thing that I can think of is maybe the Oregon Duck mascot. You know how big his fucking beak is, and him doing push-ups every day when he scored touchdowns.
Oh, man.
You gotta go to an Oregon game.
Yeah.
I'm really sad we have so few people watching right now because this just doubled the greatness of this podcast.
Look, you just got to look. You got to keep doing it, and just hope word of mouth says, you know what? We got to stick around for the stupidity that's going to come.
That's right. And each week, I hope it gets better. All right. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you next Tuesday night.